All right. So, this is probably, I want to tell you what I saw as I drove in here today.
Okay.
I've never been to Long Beach.
Right.
Beautiful town.
Thank
Beautiful
you.
town.
I built it myself.
Beautiful fucking
These
town.
hands.
And I'm walking down, and there was a homeless gentleman, and he had some pants on that looked like they were around, like they had gone to Afghanistan during the war and came back.
Okay.
And he found them. He was wearing them. And then he didn't have any shoes on. And he was also missing a shirt. And I saw this guy, and the first instinct I had was homeless. I'm like, nope, artificial edge. Sean has started a movement. He just has people walking around. I've never even texted you on this. Will you just break that down for me? Why the fuck do you walk around?
I'm actually happy you asked me this.
Yes. Why?
So
just let people know what it is first. What
all
I'm
right. So what you're talking about is my affinity for going on walks and runs with no shoes and no shirt and a pair of shorts in all the seasons.
In all the seasons.
Yeah. Like I ran on the boardwalk. There was snow. By the way, that was a really bad idea doing it that day because now you're about 2/3 of a mile away from the house.
Yeah.
And that's when my feet started to not feel anything anymore in snow.
They ever chap and bleed and shit?
No, because I don't go that far. I'm not like a David Goggins type.
Yeah.
I'm like 2 miles out and we're
Yeah.
good. But I was out there and I'm like, oh, fuck. Is this dangerous? Is this a bad idea? My feet really hurt and now I don't feel anything in my feet anymore. And I'm not sure if that's how frostbite or like any of that stuff happens. Long story short, still got them. Feet are good. But the reason I do that is I enjoy demonstrably for myself doing things that I know other people are terrified of, unwilling to do, totally turned off by, because it feels like this fake artificial edge that I'm able to develop in business, in relationships, in conversations, and it helps me to stay calm.
Wrapping a band or a rubber band around your nutsack would do the same thing, or but like there's plenty of shit you can do to cause pain.
I'm not looking to cause pain.
So like that's like when I see people do ice baths and sauna. Besides the hot, cold, muscular benefit to that, it's generally like getting themselves in a uncomfortable position type scenario. The origin of
Right.
CrossFit, get comfortable with the uncomfortable and things like that. Did you experiment with anything prior to besides going outside? I know it's cold. It's New York. It can be cold here. It's very cold here during the winter months. Was that just the easiest? I don't have to buy anything, do anything to create an artificial edge?
Yeah, it was. I can do this while I'm being productive, while I'm out for a run. If I wanted to go out for a run and really get a workout in, I put shoes and a shirt on and gloves in the winter because I'm like, I don't want to be dealing with this radical discomfort radical discomfort. Like I'm not that uncomfortable, but I don't want to be dealing with this discomfort while the intent is cardio, right? Fitness. So when I do that, the intent is control your breathing, zone out, and just understand that you're going to be in an uncomfortable environment for 20 minutes.
Are you zenning into stuff? Because one time, a lot of time you're, how long do you walk for? Like, how long does that trip take?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. So let's say you go face the camera for the IG for a minute, maybe 2 minutes. What are you thinking of in that other? Is it just like fight the pain, don't feel you're not cold, you're not cold, you're not cold? Are you like distracting yourself with some Zen shit? Like what else is like? What are you doing with your brain at that point?
I'm thinking about active life.
Okay.
The whole time. It's part of it is. The whole thing started with like the ocean's cold in the winter, jump in the ocean. Done that. Okay, that's really, really, really inconvenient. Because now you're walking home cold, wet, and like...
That's where sharks live.
It's where sharks live.
It's not a good idea.
So it's just not
a fucking good idea.
Not useful. So that's something I'm just not interested in doing.
Yeah.
I don't have a cold plunge at my house. I don't feel like putting one in. And that's just not appealing to me.
It's beyond interesting. Like when I see it and I was like, all right, well, I don't know. Maybe he's like what they call like testing your audience or testing your followership. Like do something and like put a call to action out there and see how many people you can get to do. I'm like, I wonder if there's other like Shawnites and Active Life followers out there and ProPath gym owners that are like taking their shirts off. And like, do you get these DMs of people
all
like,
the time.
Yeah. So I figured that started like a mini little movement of people out there. And I just picture these dudes' wives like, what the fuck are you doing?
Oh,
and
it's women too.
Yeah.
I get videos and and DMs frequently. Like I would say maybe once or twice every time I do it, somebody will send a DM back. Hey, here's me doing the same thing, dude. Cool, we did it on the same day. And I never got those before. So that's cool. But I'm doing it because I want people to understand that we don't always have to be super comfortable. And there are ways to get to inoculate ourselves to discomfort in a safe and productive way.
Do you think the people you work with having more because they're entrepreneurs, or those that have a CrossFit background makes them more opt into something like this, to get comfortable with the uncomfortable?
Most of the people who send me videos doing it are not clients.
They're just random people following.
Random Instagram followers who are like,
do you think they're entrepreneurs, or do you think they're part of this like hardcore functional fitness movement that's occurred since 2000?
I think they're probably more the latter.
Yeah. I think a lot of that, and I was thinking a lot about your company and what I know of it on the flight over here. How much of the success of this professionalized, like you had so many people get into becoming a coach over the course of a weekend. I mean, we're talking a crazy amount. The next logical thing, if you're just a business guy looking at the scene, is an advancement and evolution of education there, because it kind of just stopped with that one organization. How much of the success of Active Life and the direction and everything you've had to do is due to CrossFit?
That's a good question. I think that it would be ignorant of me to suggest that it would be what it is at all without CrossFit's influence. My background is I was a personal trainer first. I was training people in the weight room at University of Maryland in 2004, 2005. Then I worked as a personal trainer at commercial gyms. Really, really, really bad one, where the boss would have sex with the members.
Selling bags of steroids.
I sold a bag of steroids. It was an accident. I didn't know I was doing it, but a guy gave me $700 for a gym bag. I'm like, that wasn't an empty gym bag.
Yeah.
And told me to keep the change.
Keep talking. I'm just going to adjust the level here.
Yeah.
Keep going.
The boss at that gym would take members and non-members, all women, into his office, which had windows that he could see into the gym, and people from the gym couldn't see into his office, and he would bang them. And if his wife would come, he had a door that they could leave on the backside of the office. So this is the first gym environment that I was in, quote, professionally. I'm like, this is not the culture that I want to surround myself with. So then I left, I went to Equinox. But to make this whole longer story short, it wasn't until I stumbled into a CrossFit gym and I was like, oh, these are the kind of people I relate to. I was at that point a chiropractor. I had a license. I was frustrated with patients where I was. Start treating CrossFitters, and I'm like, they do what you ask them to do. They want to be a part of it all. So everything evolved out of that. And I think that there's a lot there for CrossFit.
There's a difference between the person in a CrossFit gym, like the one that you say, like, hey, this is a brick wall. We're going to run through it today. And they're like, well, okay, that's going to make me fitter. Versus the person who just came in there looking for like fitness, and they're the ones that just never really stuck to it. Like they didn't show up on the Friday Night Lights. They don't care if they PR a snatch. Like, this is just a vessel that I came to do fitness. And there's just these two very unique user groups. And obviously the ones that Active Life works with are those who are either personally as a client so invested in a training methodology or a style or a sport or an event or an ability to do something that to fix that problem is an utmost priority, a priority they will spend time, money, and energy on. With CrossFit creating that kind of a breed of an individual, do you guys find as people, like, because in the beginning, I always used to talk with the OPEX guys, I'm like, with individual design, I'm like, you're going to get the CrossFit athlete kids, the kids who really want to compete. What happens when that like sport becomes unobtainable, just kind of like the NBA and things like that? Have you noticed a drop off or a shift in that clientele away from this individual who wants to be this higher end professional athlete in the sport of functional fitness, and those that just, I really want to muscle up and I really can't because my shoulder really hurts?
No. That's not that's not the audience that we aim for.
In the beginning, was it more like competitive CrossFitters who get, like, I look at the LCKs, like with like some of your earlier videos. I was going through a lot of the older ones, and I was looking at videos of her back when she was competitive LCK, and fixing her.
Well, we didn't work with her when she was competitive.
So it was post.
Oh, well, post. Yeah, that was like a year ago. So the competitive CrossFit landscape for us evolved because I can get into how we got into the competitive space, but it became. One year at the CrossFit Games, I remember having 40 athletes on my phone who I was keeping tabs on in the warm-up area and after workouts to make sure everything was going well. Like 40 Games athletes in 2016 or 2017. I don't remember which year it was. And that actually was a double-edged sword. It got our name out there a lot. And at the same time, people thought they needed to be an elite athlete to work with us. And we aren't Invictus. We're not brute strength. We're not writing programs for elite athletes to be elite athletes. We are helping the coaches who work with elite athletes to keep them able to train. Big difference there. We're not Ford or Ferrari or GMC. We're Exxon. We're the gas in the car. So we found that it was actually more of a problem than it was a benefit to be working with all of those elite athletes who were talking about us, because the audience who we wanted to serve felt like they couldn't work with us if they weren't elite.
And now, with that, the evolution of that, do you still carry a roster of working with individuals or coaches like that are still in that realm, or is it far less?
We will. The big difference is we're not looking for them.
Got it.
So
versus you were actively looking. Were you looking for them prior?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking for them prior. We weren't. We tried after we worked with Jacob Hepner and Lindy Barber very successfully. We were like, we want to help you organize how you can tell the world about us. So we will pay you, a stipend, like $1,000 a month each, to continue to tell the world our story. Because at that point, they didn't need our program design anymore. So how were they going to tell people about us on their social? It just didn't make sense. So we needed to create a way to, hey, we're going to send you this to do, and if you could post it, that'd be great. And they did that. That wasn't extremely fruitful. Before that, we would work with all of these athletes, 90% of them no charge. The expense to them was sharing content, regular sharing of content. And they were all for it. But so we would ask athletes, is there anybody who you're friends with who would like to work with us as well? And the interesting there is no, because I'm going to beat them if.
Sure.
So
competitive athletes not wanting to help the other competitive athletes get.
It was a really, really interesting space, because competitive athletes in CrossFit especially, they don't want people to know what their ailments are. So there's this level of working with Active Life on everything just to fine tune everything. Definitely not patellar tendonitis. It's definitely not shin splints. I'm definitely not dealing with some labrum issues in my shoulder. Nope, I'm just making sure everything works well.
Which surprises me in the sport, because even if I knew that the guy to the right of me in a heat and to the left of me it doesn't help me at all. If the luck of the draw and the movements come in, I can say he might be going slower on those hang cleans because he's got that patellar tendonitis. But ultimately, if my cap and capacity is a certain amount, do you think that really helps if a CrossFit Games athlete knows the physical limitation due to injury or specific site issues or stuff like that? Does that actually really help them in a one-to-one model? Because it's, okay, if I know Peyton Manning's shoulder's fucked up, I can we're blitzing all goddamn fucking day.
We're going to force him to throw this way.
We're going to force him to throw to his bad side.
Yeah, I think it can help. And here's why I think it can help. There's just confidence that they're going to generate. And if nothing else, a confident athlete is a better athlete. And if I believe Stu is not going to be able to hang because he's got this thing going on, I'm going to be more confident. And that's a benefit to me. So I can understand why other athletes wouldn't want anybody to know that they're dealing with any kind of an ailment, simply because I don't need that person to be more confident. It's not about, when I see, pick your Brooke slowing down on deadlifts, I know it's because she's dealing with this, so I'm going to push it. There's 9 other people at the same time. Who cares? So, but them knowing I have a little bit of an edge here that maybe they didn't have before, I think that's a good enough reason to keep things quiet.
Does that lack of sharing information, do you think, maybe skew the vision of what a lot of the layman, the average person in the gym who looks up at that profession and I want to be that? If you truly knew the roster, here's the 52-man roster of everyone who goes to the games or whatever it fucking is, and here's every injury they're currently dealing with or have dealt in the past year, I think they probably maybe changed the tune for people who are looking at that.
I think it could. I don't think it should. I think that there's a very clear line between what Matt Fraser was willing to do, and I didn't work with Matt Fraser, what Matt Fraser, and I chose him on purpose because I didn't work with him and I don't want to,
Yeah.
what Matt Fraser is prepared to do every day is not what you or I are prepared to do fitness-wise every day, or even the people who want to be competitive in CrossFit are prepared to do every day. So I think that there's an inherent element to sport that sport is not healthy. Sport is not a fitness modality. So if you're pursuing that, you need to be ready to take with that what comes, which is you're going to compete with an achy shoulder. You're going to compete with an achy knee. Your back is going to deal with some issues. And someone like Matt Fraser, I heard him on Rogan, wouldn't say, I had injuries. He also, I imagine if you asked him, wouldn't say, yeah, I felt 100% every time I competed. His goal is competition. The person who wants to be like Matt, like if their goal is competition, has to be ready to deal with that. The person who wants to kind of be like Matt, like I want to be like Mike, those commercials, they don't need to deal with that kind of stuff.
The psyche of a highly competitive athlete, a Jordan, a Matt Fraser, an Armstrong, the amount of pain, whatever they're in injury-wise, physically, at a muscular, skeletal level, is nothing compared to the pain they're willing to go into to actually win. 100%. And that's the difference, right? Like, someone at the gym, I remember, this is like right around 2014 when I really was like, okay, I got to separate myself from this thing. I'd have someone like crying because they didn't do well in the open and they want to be a CrossFit athlete, but they'd be like, I don't know, like my calf is just kind of hurting a little bit when I do these box jumps. And I'm like, I get it. And if I was running or cycling or skiing, I get it. I would take that off. But you're literally here telling me you're thinking of quitting your job at fucking Wells Fargo because you want to do this full time. Like, that calf pain is just the fucking, like, that's not even a thing. Like, we should even, if you want to be a competitive athlete, you're going to be in pain at a very high frequency.
Yeah, because sports are inherently unhealthy.
Yes.
It's, to give CrossFit credit, they say we fail at the margins of our experience. We do. And if you fail at the margin of your experience at intensity, you could get hurt. And that is the back and forth that I have with CrossFit. I think it's great. I think it's the best. When I look at the landscape, I'm like, consistently getting more people fit than any other fitness brand on the planet. Coaches who coach CrossFit need to administer it better, because if they push people at intensity at the edge of their experience, that's when breakdown and injury starts to happen. And I think athletes just know that. And they're like, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for where do I break down so I can understand exactly how far I can throttle before I break.
Yeah. I think
the everyday person, totally unnecessary.
The throttle line, I always refer to as, I always looked at CrossFit as this high performance sports car. And so I've gone to tracks and done like Lambos, and you have to go through sessions. Like, you have to be with an instructor, and he has to teach you how to do. You can't just drive this car, sir. You fucking drive a Ford Explorer Sport. Get the fuck out of here. Like, CrossFit can be this amazing performance vehicle for health or performance or fit, whatever you want on it. But if you don't know how to drive it, it is 100% probably be the fastest thing to you wrapping it into a fucking wall.
Yeah.
Easily.
Yeah, it's very much like getting the keys to a Ferrari without getting the lessons on how to drive it.
Do you see...
When people don't get the lessons on how to drive it, I don't think that there's a across the board, like, it doesn't work or it does work. It works when people use it well, period.
Do you look at the numbers? I have no idea. How many people did the Open this year? Do you have any idea?
No.
You think it's up or down?
From when?
From any other time previously.
I believe it's up from last year and down from its peak.
Okay. So we'll just call 2020 just kind of like the pandy.
Yeah, it might have been up from 2019 also, when it's like, I don't know. Sean would probably know better than both of us do.
Yeah. So my curiosity there is, I've always, I think about these factories, these 16,000 little CrossFit factories that are churning some people just looking for general fitness and some people that fall in love with the new sport at 32 years old, right? And even though that sport's just going to be recreational, like a runner might do a recreational 5K or a half or whatever. I'm just curious, at what point does the sport become so professionalized to where there's a clear line saying, because for a decent period of time, you could be halfway decent and be this person that makes it so far and, be a part of that elite group, but it's because the sample size of people doing it was so fucking small. And so, I was just curious whether you guys have seen, because we got to imagine a lot of the people that come to you in the very beginning and inception of this company were chasing that end goal.
Yeah.
And now is it more because you guys, I'm assuming, get very deep into the goals as to why do you want to get out of pain.
We do now.
Yeah.
We do now. We always tried to. We do it much better now.
Why now? What's different?
We're more mature.
Okay.
We understand much better the reasons why people actually sign up. Like even the elite athlete who would sign up. Why are you signing up? Well, my shoulder hurts. That's not why you're signing up. Your shoulder's been, when did your shoulder start hurting you? 6 months ago. Well, then you didn't sign up because your shoulder hurts. You signed up for another reason. Did you try other things? Yeah, I tried this, and this. Okay. So what led you to us? Why are you signing up now, and why with us instead of trying another thing? So we've learned how to ask those questions and understand what the person actually wants, which has helped us immensely to help our clients because it gives us a chance to say, we work with you for a year and it's wildly successful. What is different in your life a year from now? So that we can say, that's the target. What is success? It's not, oh, my shoulder doesn't hurt. Because if your shoulder doesn't hurt, but you can't put weight overhead, you're not happy. Right? So it's your shoulder needs to not hurt while you're able to increase your capacity to put weight overhead at speeds you previously couldn't, for durations you previously couldn't. And when you start to deal with aches and pains, you know what it means and what to do about it. And you're able to live in the real world. That would be success for you. For instance.
I always look at your stuff and I'm like, it's got to be difficult because you have 3 different avatars. You have clients, coaches, and owners.
It is tough.
And so like when I see Active Life post or yours personal post, it's kind of like which one is he going at on this one? Sometimes it's both, and sometimes it's isolated.
On my personal.
On your personal or on the Active Life, how do you shake hand? How do you hit a 3-way fucking elephant walk handshake on those 3 avatars?
It's hard, and we're still trying to figure that out.
First off, which one, if you had to not marry one, fuck one, kill one, not that game, but just if you had to kill 2, who do you kill and which one do you keep? If you could only market to one for the viability of the success of the business.
I think we'd kind of be in that Netflix situation where right now a lot of our business is the gyms, and our best avenue is probably the coaches.
Because there's more of them?
Because there's more of them, and we have more of an opportunity for an industry shift working with coaches and having Jim just adopt that, wow, we have amazing coaches now, let's leverage them, and hope that other companies out there can actually teach these gyms how to do that. Like, we're giving you a Ferrari. This coach is now a Ferrari. Please learn how to drive them effectively. The reason why all 3 have evolved, Stu, is we started off with one-on-one coaching, and then coaches were coming to us saying, how are you doing
one-on-one coaching
this?
For our clients.
Clients, yeah. Coaches were saying, how are you doing this? We hosted a seminar. We had 60 people come from 5 different countries and 22 different states to our gym down the block. 120 people applied to come. So then it was like, okay, well, now I know how to assess this stuff. How do I fix people? We were hesitant because we're like, isn't that kind of like it's doctor level skill? I don't know if we want to teach this to coaches. And then we decided to do it and teach them how to market it and teach them how to sell it. And coaches went from making $350, $400 a month to making $100,000 a year. Like 5-6 months of working with us, and they were on that run rate, which people love to share run rate. Sure. But then for 12 months they sustained it. So it went from run rate to reality. Then gym owners were like, hey, what's going on here? My coach is able to do this. Why can't all of my coaches do this? So we started teaching gym owners. The other side of that was, and this is why I don't believe we'll ever move away from gym owners and why I'm passionate about growing that part of the business. The biggest travesty that could possibly happen is we teach a coach to be great. We teach a coach to monetize. They go to a gym and the gym owner says, well, I'm working with this mentor. And they said, this is all I'm allowed to pay you. And this is all that we're going to charge. And they're like, why did I get this education for?
Yeah. So the moving past the client to the coach, the only issue is here's your cert or here's your knowledge. You have nowhere to go and get a fair market value rate for that.
100%. And because gym owners are like, nobody wants to pay that here. True. For what you're doing. Nobody wants to do the whiteboard workout one-on-one for $70. That sucks. And a coach doesn't want to go up to somebody and say, I'd love to work with you one-on-one. It's going to cost you $70. Oh, what are we going to do? Whiteboard stuff, just one-on-one. I'm really going to fix your technique and stuff. We're going to get you muscle ups. Don't really care about that. Well, okay. Goes to the gym owner. Nobody wants to pay that. And now a coach who doesn't have effective sales skills, really valuable skill sets, like around coaching, becomes conflict averse to having that emotional denial over and over and over again. And they're like, look, what's the upside? I make $31?
Yeah.
No, thank you. And the last thing is, the reason why we still have the one-on-one and we'll always have the one-on-one is that's the lab.
Yeah. It's because for me, do you see most of the coaches you work with, are they full-time coaches in someone else's shop? Or are they budding, waiting, and lurking entrepreneurs waiting to open their own shop? Because that seems to be the thing. If so you arm somebody with a level of knowledge, that's what Cross ran into. I was a level one inside of a Globo
gym. We
gym.
don't do that, though.
Okay.
So if someone came to us and said, I'm a coach right now and I want to open up my own gym, we would 8 out of 10 times not sell them the coach education. We would sell them the gym owner education so that they can open their gym properly.
Sure.
The coach you're talking about is somebody, typically the coach who comes to us is somebody who really has a passion for fitness. It wants to work full-time in it, cannot figure out how to make enough money, and knows that chasing abs, ass, and ego is not what they want to do. So they're like, I'm frustrated for the members because they're still dealing with these issues. I want to be the person who's able to help them get over these issues, and I want to make a lot of money doing it, but I'm still working as a construction worker or a teacher or name your career, and they don't love it. And they're like, but there's money here. This is kind of hobby money, and I don't know how to
And even if
do that.
So, but again, that coach now, the biggest thing there, if they're not going to go open their own shop, they have to get the gym owner to buy into you and your idea and your system, and essentially get to break the beliefs, which those are much harder walls to have the employee convince the gym owner, not organically.
They can be. It depends. If that gym owner, we teach the coach how to do that, and
how to not like, for lack of a better word, not manipulate but influence the owner.
Sell.
Yeah.
Sell the owner on this idea. It's right now, typically the gym owners, the average price of a personal training session in a CrossFit gym is about $70. The average take home
is like
of the coach is like $32. Yeah. That doesn't work. But what we look at is, okay, let's just take that on its face. If the gym owner is establishing, I need to make $38 on that session, because that's 70 minus 32 is 38. So the gym owner has said, yeah, $38 makes me whole. Okay, I don't need to know how you came up with that number. There's probably a lot of ridiculousness to it, and I don't care.
But let me set my own price, and you still get 38 or 32.
Yep. You said 38 is good. Can I charge 120 and still give you 38? If the gym owner says, well, nobody's going to pay that here, can that be my problem?
And we can see, though, the domino effect. Let's take a young Sean. Sean's coach, like, oh, give me fucking 6 months and I'll have fucking 20% of this place. Yeah, doing that. The gym owner's either going to go, holy shit, we need to adjust the model, or there's going to be an ego clash. And generally what ends up happening, it spawns out an incestual new gym with that coach now becoming an owner somewhere because he couldn't do it that way.
We don't see that. We see the coaches moving to gyms who we've taught to be successful gyms who are like, dude, I need more coaches. Like we had a bunch of part-time coaches who wanted to be part-time coaches. They loved their careers and the members liked them and they do a great job in class. If we want to elevate and have real full-time career staff, we need a coach who wants to be real full-time career coach. And then we are able to help those coaches move from one gym into another because they don't want to be a gym owner. They want to be a coach. And we help them understand that just because it's not working here does not mean that you should go open a gym. It's a totally different skill set and a totally different responsibility. You don't get to, I believe, the coach's job is to serve the member. The owner's job is to serve the coach. The member's money serves the owner. And people who are coaches enjoy serving the member. They don't necessarily want to manage a staff. So we're always looking to place them somewhere instead of having them go open their own thing. And the biggest thing that they struggle with in the gyms that they're at is when that gym is working with a mentor who is really hard line, like, this is what a session should cost, or it doesn't matter what a session should cost. This is the percent that you need to make, Mr. Gym Owner, because the coach works for you. I'm like, that is not how you're going to create a successful culture.
And then, and you and me have talked about this before. I believe that the majority of technicians, I don't care if you're a woodworker or a coach or a hairstylist or a lawyer, the majority of technicians at some point want to move on from their B to C gig where they do the service, the same service they've done for 10, 15 years. And that ascension, and it also is, it's not that it's maybe as much lucrative because there's definitely that component, but it just, this would be a new challenge. I want to now coach coaches. You always hear like coach, like I've been personal training. I've been training people for 15 years. I now want to coach coaches. How do you guys help someone transition? Be like, okay, I'm a coach in this guy's gym. I'm not leaving. I'm not going to start my own gym. I'm here though. And now I want to now become a coach. I want to ascend to management. I want to go from technician to management. Mm-hmm. What does that look like when you're still inside someone's shop? And I think we can honestly both say that most of these shops don't have the infrastructure or the business acumen to have an upper management and tiers of that.
So you're asking me if the coach is working with us and the gym owner is not, and the coach wants to grow beyond coaching these clients, how does that coach do that within that gym?
Yeah, and the answer, I'm assuming, is it can't. It's just not.
It can. It does. It does regularly. So what happens is we educate the coach on how to communicate with the gym owner on building a personal training department, right? So you have now demonstrated efficacy in these methods where you're making real financial freeing income doing something that you love to do in the gym where you've always worked with the members who you've always liked and you didn't need to move or anything. And you're making money and the gym owner is making money and everybody's happy. Other coaches are going to want to learn how to do that. So we teach that coach how to go to the gym owner and discuss bringing all of the staff members up through this person becoming responsible for organizing a personal training department and the other coaches on staff taking our education so they don't have to secondhand telephone game provide the education. And then the personal training manager now is the person who was formerly the coach, still does some sessions, make sure all of the other coaches doing sessions well, and gets a small piece of each of those sessions.
Does there have to be a sunset of the group model then? And because you're going to have to become more predominantly PT, like even you look at the layout of the facility, like everything would have to change at that point if you're going to bring in a personal training department into what was originally designed for as a group fitness place to have 20 people in. I mean, you're talking a complete rewiring and restructuring of the majority of that operation.
There is a good, better, and a best. And good is you have some personal training happening in your group fitness environment. Because let's be honest, it's very difficult for a gym owner to pay a coach a financially freeing income for a career if their job is coach class.
So it'd be like a PT first and then try to, let's say you'll make everybody go through PT first that joins this gym, and then we're going to try to get 20% of them on some kind of recurring monthly every 6 week kind of PT thing.
We can get into the PT first stuff. The way it would work first and foremost is your gym is X amount of square feet. Do you have a space where personal training can happen in that gym? Yes or no? If we ask a coach that and they're like, not really. Every class is kind of full. There's no room. We're like,
maxed out.
We are going to be really hard pressed to help you achieve success at doing this unless if you can do it during dead times. And we don't see that being a consistently viable way to do it.
Never has been, never will be.
Right. And we won't take that person's money unless they tell us, I'm ready to move. I'll do this online, whatever. I really want to learn this. Like we're really selective to our benefit and our detriment at the same time. We could make a lot more money and have a lot of people out there saying, didn't work for me. We don't do that. That's good. Good is there's a space. Yeah, I can get like a 10 by 10 and train a client, no problem. And it's going to happen on the side of group class. Gym owner's cool with it. Better is there's a designated area where 2 or 3 sessions could happen at the same time. And it's happening in a room where maybe other members of the gym can see that it's happening, but they're not dealing with the crashing of the barbells and the loud of the music. It's like a room across the hall or in the back, whatever. That's better. Best, we're able to help that gym owner understand that there's a better way to run their gym, and that the group model that we design for gym owners salvages the fun and the community of the group that they're currently running and provides higher level service for the member, which warrants a higher price point, and it allows them to stop competing with everybody in town. Now, the more gyms who come in your town, you're like, everybody, please come. Because if 5,000 people join gyms in that town and 1% of them leave each month because they're dealing with some kind of a nagging ache or pain, or they're not losing the weight that they thought they were going to lose, or they're not getting the muscle they thought they were going to gain because these models are built for the best and scale for the rest, they're like, yo, we're the solution. And they don't have to market against these gyms. They can market. If gyms haven't worked, come to us.
So when you talk about going there, that's pretty much your ProPath gyms. When
That's
you
the
guys
ProPath.
when you've adopted it. You and me talked, it was in 2020, and we talked about that model, that hybrid model that you were creating for the ProPath gyms. The biggest obstacle, in my guess, is getting these guys to essentially shut down their previous model, or essentially and completely evolve it. It's very much what I get when someone's rebranding, and they got to walk through them. My biggest obstacle is rarely money, and it's rarely the customer. It's always the owner and that preconceived belief of what I can and cannot do, what the customer will allow me to pivot on and what they won't. You're able to, on math, I'm sure of it, show the financial benefit of doing this, and they can see the ethic benefit of doing this to improve the quality for that individual. What's your biggest, when you're trying to close someone on a ProPath and they just don't, like, I just can't, I'm just not doing it, or you can't sell them, what do you lie that on?
So we don't ask everybody to do that. We have 3 different models of a business that we'll ask somebody to run. And if they don't want to run one of those 3, we won't take them as a client. Model 1, group fitness with personal training. Nobody will grow the personal training in the gym the way that we will, period. Model 2, group class with personal training and 2 of these classes on your schedule each day. So you have your regular group, and then you have your specialized group twice a day. The upside to that, less disruption, right? The downside to that is
Going to cannibalize one of your group fitness
100%.
class times.
You're going to cannibalize a class time.
This new thing.
And this thing might cost $499 a month, and that thing might cost $150. These members who are like, okay, yeah, I see why I should do that, they're going to do it for as long as they feel like they need to do it until they can go back to the $150. And that's reality. They're going to churn out of that program into a different program because they trust you, the gym owner, the coaches on the staff, everything about the facility, and they're like, you helped me with everything I needed. Now I'm going to go back to the other thing.
And if you got to pick which one of the 3 models are you, if you got to, like, this is the one that's going to make you the most money and make you the happiest clients and the best paid coaches, it's probably the 3rd one.
Oh, Model 3.
Model 3.
And this is no different than what you would do with Urban Movement.
Yeah.
It's the idea of, look, here's what we tell people. We're like, if you want to start with Model 1 and gradually move to Model 3, that is the safest way to do it, right? When we start with the gym, we're not like, close your doors for 4 months, pre-sell, start over. We don't do that because we know that people coming to us are probably not exceptional at customer acquisition. And we don't want them to take the risk of like, all right, everyone, you're gone. We're going to replace everything and you're welcome to come back, founder's price, whatever, not forever. You're welcome to come back because they might not be able to acquire the members to fill the financial void and they could be screwed.
Yeah.
So what most of them do is they come in and we just ramp up the personal training to the point that if you have 100 members, you're doing 20 personal training sessions per week at prices that you never imagined people would pay. We do it all based on demographic statistics of what your area generates financially, and then we have a calculation for what you can charge based on that. Then we say, okay, well, now you have this threshold of members who are no longer feeling like they need one-on-one training, who you would tell you no longer need one-on-one training. What are they going to do? They don't want to go back to the group class. They were just spending $800 to $1,000 a month with you. Give them something in between the group class and one-on-one training. And that's when the active life class model comes in. And then those people may not want to go back to the other class model because they felt the need for one-on-one, so they stay there. Then over time, you add a class, add a class. And if your interest is to go all the way to the full flip, once revenue on that class matches revenue where you are now is gone. So you're not putting that money in your pocket. You're not buying yourself, a brand new Ducati with it. You're storing it because when you make this big flip, 50% of your revenue potentially will be gone. And you're starting right back where you were, but every new member who joins your gym is now going to pay the appropriate price for the appropriate service, and you have a foundation you can build on.
So if you have cash reserves, you could. Like someone's like, yeah, I've got $300K sitting there. Like I can afford to sun this thing down for 4 months and do a burn it down and build new.
Yes.
If you don't have the cash reserves, you're going to do, what in the rebranding, like the slow drip, the coffee drip play, where you're going to go slow and steady because those nice tight slices are going to yield the least amount of churn.
Yes.
Big cuts and big slices are going to reveal more churn. And that's what you're doing is mitigating. You're trying to buy time to influence and convince the current customer base this is the right way, which most coaches, I think they don't realize the power they have. I always joke around, no one in the fucking world would think like, take your thumbs, put them into the barbell, and now wrap all the other fingers around it and squeeze real fucking hard. How does that feel like? It really hurts. Good. Do it all the time when you're lifting weights.
Drive like that.
Yeah. Drive like that. Yeah. Hold your beers like that. Like that, using the hook grip, like all these things that gym owners are able to teach motherfuckers. And they absolutely they take it like 100% and they run with it. But then you tell them, well, you're just telling them something new now. You're having to break a previous belief that you already installed. You already installed this fucking system. Now you're just uninstalling it out of the CPU.
Well, the difference is in that situation, money is not a factor. In this situation, gym owners now and coaches now have to overcome all the toxic relationships they have with money. And that's the hardest part of what we do, is help them break that. And I would add to what you said, if someone has $300,000 sitting around and they're like, let's just flip this thing upside down, I would say you need both $300,000 and pre-existing marketing skill to acquire members, because we are not going to teach you how to acquire members in mass through your computer. It's going to be the kind of stuff that you teach, and that's why I want you to come in and talk to our gym owners today, because it's doing it the way that is going to last. It's creating 20 businesses in your town who are going to refer you 2 or 3 members a year, and understanding that getting 60 member referrals from 20 businesses in town every year is like, that's diamonds.
Yeah, it's becoming rich by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that doesn't turn your gym from 0 to overnight. So we have had some gyms do that, and what we've explained to them is the way you're going to do this is you're going to run a pre-sale, right? Like you don't have to close. You're going to keep your gym going the way that it is right now, keep the revenue coming in.
Announce the new service.
Announce the new service that's eligible to start on this date. Put a big sign out front, like let everybody in town know we're launching a new program. Sell people into a dedicated sales team, selling people into a dedicated marketing. That's all you're talking about. You're no longer selling memberships to the old thing. It's not even existent. You have to already be a member to do that.
You're creating a Kickstarter, an in-service Kickstarter.
100%. And the idea is, if you're effective, in 3 months, you've sold enough memberships that revenue matches your existing revenue, and you can just rip the Band-Aid off. That does not happen every single time. Full transparency. It doesn't happen every single time, and they can't rip the Band-Aid off that way. And they have to have some mix or some risk tolerance and just do it anyway. But the difference is typically 2.5 to 3x the price point, which means if you have 100 members, you need 30.
Yeah.
35.
I love having conversations like this. I think a lot of people ping me as, there was a period of time when my personal, like CrossFit South End and then Urban Movement did PT first. So a lot of people put me like, you believe it has to be PT first. Like, that's how I'm choosing to do it. I see a bunch of benefits here, but I also have these networked and communicating people I know who are making plenty of good money, and they're not running a PT first model. And then I got rid of my PT first and went to a volume base for the franchise license base, but so now you hate PT first. And having these conversations here, I always wanted to just I wanted to be, to know enough to be dangerous and educated in all the different ways people are making a micro gym work. Because if there's 2 ways in the beginning, there'll be 10 ways in 10 years, there'll be 30 ways, and there'll be some consistencies there, but there'll be these unique recipes to make this thing fucking work. how many iterations of the ProPath gym from like the time we spoke even to now have you guys kind of experimented with to come up with what's now would be like the current model if you were to sign up?
Oh, dude. I mean, anybody who knows anything about me knows that one of my gifts and curses.
Rate of implementation.
Yes. So I was our first ProPath seminar ever. Matt Gallo, owner of a gym in Staten Island, is in the audience. He's one of our members. And I announced, this is how you're going to price personal training to the whole group. This is the calculation you're going to use to price personal training. Raises his hand. He's like, I have a question. I'm like, sure. He's like, that's not what you taught us when we first started. Is this what we should do, or should we do what you first taught us? And I'm like, how long ago did you sign up? And he's like, 2 weeks. I'm like, oh.
Change my mind.
We found a better way to do it.
Yeah.
Do this one.
Yeah.
And everybody laughed because they know, like, this is who this person is. So
but that's also how everything is. The second you get new information,
throw out the old stuff.
Just start using it.
Yes.
Don't have to be romantic about it.
Well, it's getting rid of your identity with being right about what you previously said. Yep. I'm totally cool with being wrong all the time and saying, I got a better way now.
Yep.
I want people to know that that's who we are. So if you come to us and we are like, we thought this was good, we found out this was better, we're moving. That's gone. Stop. Don't dig a hole there. There's no oil there. We're going to dig over here. So infinitely different now than it was when we first started.
Let me ask you this. When did you move in here?
October 2019.
Previous to this, you had very little overhead.
Oh, yeah, I was in my garage.
Yeah, you had very little overhead. I remember when you moved in here, I was like, the fucking dude's crazy. Why the fuck is he doing? Like, I fucking sitting there, I was building out the building maybe at around that time, or we were just moving in. I was just like, why would you? And then, I heard the model, and you originally had this co-working, this cool model, right? COVID, whatever. It seems, at least from what I see, my conversations with you, and then just visually on digital world and social, you've grown this company significantly. You have these new characters, these Larrys and all these other guys. You've got this, fucking Clary and all these people. You have this awesome team. And humans are the most expensive. It goes generally rent and then payroll, and then that flip-flops at some point. Mm-hmm. And the experienced, sophisticated businesses realize that HR becomes your bane of your existence forever and ever, because human beings are emotional and complicated creatures.
You're married to everybody on your staff.
Would I be accurate in taking a guess that the last couple of years is one of those where entrepreneurs realize you can do two things, but you can't do them at the same time? You cannot increase profitability and increase growth exponentially. Like, these two things generally happen in inverse. I'm going to grow, which means hire, build, lease, blah, blah, so my expenses skyrocket. And generally, it's not immediately a one-to-one of new revenue coming in. You bring in these new people, you've got new systems. Talk to me about the business just from we're spending a fuck ton and we didn't make as much. Like, give people the real fucking look as to what it looks like to grow. Because this thing, what would you say was the year that you had, was it 2018 you kind of started growing exponentially? 2019?
2020.
2020? Okay.
Yeah. So, oddly enough, 2020. So, all right. What you just said from my experience is true. I haven't figured out. It doesn't mean it's gospel and it can't be done. It means I haven't figured out how to both grow infrastructure and profit at the same time.
I don't believe it happens.
So I was recently talking with my mentor about this. I'm like, it's frustrating. It's legitimately frustrating. We were making less money last summer, and the bank account just kept growing. It was great. I'm like, this is sick. Like, what do I do with this money? And the answer he gave me was properly set up a company. Like, your company is out earning your company's ability to continue to earn. And so all of that will ultimately just come crashing down because it won't work.
It won't come crashing down. It will hit you'll hit a ceiling.
And then everybody's burnt out. And it's just like, I think it would have just imploded. I mean, at the time, it was Cleary over there, myself, Larry, Ray, Ryan, who is our director of one-on-one coaching right now, and Pam, who's the director of sales. That was the team, and then we had our one-on-one coaches. But a lot of the profit was coming from the pro side of the business, the education of coaches and gym owners. And that required legitimate infrastructure. We had just started doing it. The other side of the business, we really very well understood what it was and how to do it. So we were flying around the country. We were filming videos in my garage. When we were hosting a seminar, I was phoning a friend, can we use your space? And we just saw that we weren't going to be able to continue doing that. And if we wanted to be the company that people believed could help them become the business that they wanted to be, we needed to be the business that we needed to be. And we couldn't keep filming videos out of the garage. You know, in the winter, it got cold. In the summer,
I remember the videos you sitting on your patio, barefoot.
Yeah.
Again, you and your fucking bare feet, and Coke can, and talking about core strength, and putting a plate on top of it. And I remember those. And it's so, but again, it was so clean and bootstrapped. It's just like, if 20,000 people watch this over the course of 6 months, does anybody care that it's shot here versus this backdrop?
No, they don't. It's not about that. It's about, we don't have ambitions of being another company that educates gym owners or that educates coaches or that helps people one-on-one get out of pain. Like, we have legitimate interests in fundamentally reshaping healthcare and bringing fitness as the tool to do it. So in order to do that, we have to humanize doctors so they can communicate with coaches. We need to professionalize coaches so they can meet doctors where they're at. And that will empower the individual. I don't believe that we get the credibility to do that on my front stoop. I think that we will still always do videos on my front stoop because it's interesting. It's not a white background anymore. But that cannot be the mainstay. You know, that's like, what do you want for dessert? Front stoop. Okay.
Yeah. So for you, as you look at it, and, you know, we were talking earlier, generally there's periods of growth. And when there's periods of growth, that generally means the company's going to see a downtick in profit and take home. And you generally plan for that. You squirrel away those nuts for the winter type scenario. I did it for 4 years before we moved into a new building, and I knew what upfit and all that was going to be. And then a rebrand, it's going to take me a few years for this thing to catch on before we really start generating that same revenue. Where are you in the woods of that whole thing? Well, you know,
right about break even.
Right about break even on that?
So we lost money for a few months in a row, like significant
Which,
money.
by the way, for everyone listening, that's not a bad thing. Like, every business loses money. I think people hear that and they judge it when they really don't have a full zoomed out lens as to how this actually works.
Yeah, we lost like a Toyota Camry every month for a few months. And it wasn't awesome. It wasn't awesome. I was happy and I don't know what the right word would be, but I was glad that I had the mentorship around me that allowed the company to have the money necessary to lose that kind of money consistently and still exist and exist where there's like, it's never been so uncomfortable that like, oh my God, we got to scale things back. That's never happened.
No layoffs or things like that.
No, we added. But we increased our costs by about $90,000 a month. August of last year, our operating costs. And when we did that, my thought, first time I ever did this before, my thought was, awesome, this is going to boost everything because now we have a staff member for this, a staff member for this, a staff member for this, and they're all great. This is going to be great. And then good staff members come onto the team and they say, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. We need to make all of these things better.
It's not just payroll dollars you were allocating. It was then cleaning up all the shit that they found once they started cleaning up.
Yes. And it's, we don't want to sell people into the shit. So let's try to sell people into these other things while we fix the shit and make it something nice. So costs went up.
Sales were paused.
Revenue went down.
Yeah.
And I was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
What the fuck just happened here?
And that's it. But that's the growth scenario. And let me ask you now, you said you're about break even now. You guys are, let's call it through the woods on that. Do you already see the next cycle of that? Okay, we're in the black. Maybe we're here for 36 months, and then we are going to have to get a bigger spot.
Did you say 3 to 6 or 36?
36.
Yeah,
36.
Right. Yeah, right.
So where do you see that?
So
wait, you don't think so? 36. So like once you're in the black and you're like, okay, we're going to be we're going to go back, start making money, and then within 36 months, at that stage, we're going to have to evolve to a bigger guy. Or you're saying you're going to have to evolve faster than that?
Faster.
Okay.
Faster.
So this current one sets you up to, if you were
we
really
could,
low,
we could 5 or
it raised you
10x
up.
right now.
Okay.
And it wouldn't affect us in a 5 or 10x cost kind of way. So in other words, our costs would probably go up by about 15 to 20% if we 5 or 10x income.
Okay.
So we're set for that nice inflow right now. However, like I said, that kind of growth does not represent the kind of change we want to impart on the world. And if somebody came to me right now and was like, hey, I'll give you $10 million to buy Active Life, I would say no. And not because I'm making $1 million a year, not because I'm so confident that Active Life is worth more than that, but because I have plans for this. I'm not in this because I'm like, oh, this is a great payday. Like, I haven't given myself a raise in 3 years. I have staff members who I happily pay more than I pay myself because I'm continuing to invest in the future of the company, which maybe is smart, maybe is not smart. Who knows? It's my first time doing this, right? It's my first time doing something well.
Yeah.
I can tell you all about, we can do a how I broke this episode 3 times in this podcast. But as soon as we get to where it's like, oh, okay, everything is good, I don't want to do this. And I know Warren Buffett says, nobody wants to get rich fast. I believe that if we do this, other companies who are in a similar space to us will just crush us. I look at companies out there who are doing something that I consider to be lateral to us and not in competition with us. We would be the next viable niche for them.
Why don't you raise?
I've thought about it.
Like, why don't you just go get PE money?
I've thought, because then you work for the PE company.
And
they have their own plans of like, we're going to flip this thing in 5 years and we're out. And I don't want that. I've thought about it.
Yeah. So like when you got to have, you want the jets to take off, you need to be burning a lot of jet fuel kind of scenario, but you got to have the jet fuel. And it's when it's a self-funded, and that's the hard thing when I talk with micro gym owners and I'm like, they're like, I've got this idea. I want it to be like this. And I'm going to use Alchemy 365 example. I'm like, you realize that the CEO is on a raise every fucking year. Every year Mike is hitting the fucking streets and going and having to raise 1, 2, or 3 because they want to be at 10 locations, corporately owned, and they want to have this, they want to boom like you, they want to hit that growth. That doesn't happen without an insane amount of cash.
Right. So you're right. Or really valuable partnerships, collaborations that lead to cash coming into the business that we can then appropriately leverage for what we need. Like, we have no leverage at all right now, which
you're not leveraged right now, is what you, right? You don't have anyone leveraged.
I'm not borrowing
money, no bank or anything like
correct.
that. Yeah.
So that's like a bullet in the chamber, if you will, that I'm
debt free and you've got,
Yes. So the first round I would raise would be going to a loan. It would be going to as low of an interest loan as I possibly could and say, we have this runway now to do these things. Then it starts to be, I would rather take investment from smart people who can not only provide money that I would need, but also connections, access, and acumen that I don't already have.
And that's the only thing the bank doesn't provide.
Correct.
Those VC firms, the PE, that comes with that. Here's the network. Here's all the people you're going to do with me, and then I instantly know the guys over here, here, and here, and I'm going to set that all up.
But that's third for me.
Correct.
That would be third. That would be after. It would be borrow some money, do the things we know we need to do. Raise a little bit of money from people who we respect, who can connect us to other people.
Strategic partners.
Yes. And then, okay, now we're a company that is doing real revenue, having real meaningful impact. Maybe. At that point, you go to a firm and you say, we're ready to change the world. But I don't want to do it where they're looking at us as like a nice little startup company that maybe they could double over the next 5 years and cut the costs in half and sell us for 4 or 5x what they bought us for. Like, that is not at all interesting to me.
You know, one of your big mission again is this broken healthcare model and merging the two worlds. And I've seen, obviously what CrossFit did with their doctor initiative and things like that. Have you had like how far apart is their initiative to get the docs on board with CrossFit to fix the most vexing problem in the world, blah 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 blah, and your mission?
I don't have enough intimate understanding of how CrossFit Health and CrossFit operate to make a clear judgment call.
It seems like a strategic partnership, or at least a conversation. Right?
For me to have?
Yeah, for you to have.
So I've been having it.
Okay.
I've been having the conversation with key members within the CrossFit Health community who I know respect what we're doing and who absolutely have the utmost respect from me. And I take guidance from them. I had one of them on our podcast, Dr. Amy West. She's brilliant. She sees what we're doing as being a valuable resource to the community and not a replacement to the doctor. We're not looking to Doctors aren't the bad guys here. So we're not looking to get rid of them. We need doctors. We need to partner with doctors. I just don't know how parallel what CrossFit is trying to do and what we're trying to do are, because I don't have intimate knowledge of what they're trying to do.
Because the mission is huge. And the mission, like, I truly believe, I tell people, like, when we're doing a plan, we might, let's say I do a 10-year plan with somebody. I'm like, your 10-year plan for your business should seem borderline way too cocky. It should seem preposterous.
Insanity.
Yeah, it should seem preposterous, and then we dial it back to more practical things, but you really need to have that pipe dream, because that is something that can keep you going. You think about this world that didn't exist until you did your thing.
Yeah.
Yours is, will you be dead before that mission is actually realized?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
Not before the 10-year
I'll be
mission.
dead too. So, but yeah, I think we'll both be dead, in that period. But I look at like someone like CrossFit that has the money and the resources, and like, I think the reason you don't know anything, have more intel than, and nor do I, and I feel like our ears are pretty open in this industry, because they haven't made a dent, because it's this impenetrable fucking wall. Like, I just see the mission and I love it. It's just one of those ones where I'm like, how many fucking superhero League of Justice guys is it going to take to beat that fucking bad guy?
A lot, because the real problem, in my opinion, is in education. It's not in what we do with people who are sick. It's what we keep trying to solve a 50-year problem 6 months at a time. It doesn't work that way, or 4 years at a time, right? Like every presidential election, it's like, oh, we're gonna fix it. No, you're not. It doesn't matter who I don't care if you are a Trump supporter, a Hillary supporter, a Biden. It doesn't matter. That person can only influence the start of the necessary change. That they will be dead long before it becomes a thing. This is a 50, 100-year problem that we continue to kick down the road because our mentalities are, well, what can it do for me now as a society? Instead of, what can we do now that will benefit the world in 50, 100 years from now?
Do you think that this mission will ever be able to overcome the lobbying powers and the fact that Kellogg's is going to make sure that their fucking carb-loaded cereal is still being shoveled down the fucking mouths of 6-year-olds? And
yes.
So
if I didn't believe that,
correct. But like I'm a big like shoot for the stars kind of thing. I just think about that mission. I'm like, it's gonna take a fucking team. We also talk about the Justice League. It's gonna take a fucking army of people in different genres of the industry, like whatever, but in a very consolidated mission to take that on.
Well, without getting too in the weeds on things like factory farming that I have limited education on, which is why I don't want to go in the weeds. Not because I wouldn't love to. I listened to
you and Larry talk about your cooking and all that. Yeah. I listened to all that, man.
That's right.
So, what are you making me for dinner tonight?
I don't have a kitchen. My house is void of things. It's if you ever been to a brew through in North Carolina, my house is currently a brew through.
That sounds amazing.
Except there's no refrigerators full of beer. It's just a shell. They cut the front wall off, the back wall off, took all the walls and ceilings inside out, and you could put a car through it. I think that the way that we're operating is unsustainable. Forget about from a everybody is getting fat. version of it, because that's certainly true. With 67% or 62%, I don't remember what the number is, of Americans being overweight and 40% or 42% being obese, that's alarming.
Yeah.
That's unsustainable, but I'm not even talking about that. We're going to run out of stuff. And we're going to run out of space to put stuff. So we're going to have to look at the way that agriculture works and the way that animals are raised and all that kind of stuff before it's like a lobbied initiative. It's going to be like, oh, shit, there's nothing left to eat. We need to fix this. So the idea is do that before that happens. I believe it starts with elementary schools and nursery schools. You have a 4-year-old. I have a 2-4-6. And one of my biggest concerns was my 6-year-old is going to go into kindergarten. She would have last year with COVID, but for reasons, we didn't send her to school. I didn't want her first school experience to be wearing a mask, sitting in a glass cubicle. I didn't think that was what I wanted. So they had 1 day of phys ed every 6 days. That's what's on their schedule. And I'm like, what? 6-year-old. All she wants to do is play. Run, play, and art.
They look like little cokeheads at all times, just fucking running around and daddy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's more my 2-year-old, but yeah. So I'm like, we can't have this. And so credit to my wife, we spent a lot of time talking to a lot of people about how do we get this to be more than 1 day. And now the school has 2 days every 6. The goal, let's get that to 3 days every 6. And let's have structured recess, stop being structured recess. Let's just let the kids play. So that's we're talking about the piece of the hangnail that falls off before you even see the hangnail in terms of nationally. But in our little town, if we can make our little slice, prove the concept, push it out, I think that's happening.
I want to one last thing on active life, the business, and then I want to get on some other stuff that I want to talk to you about. But what is if you're going to be dead before the mission's done? What's your exit look like when you're 60? Like how do you transition?
Hopefully my exit's not at 60. So the way I would transition in the world that I see it is, okay, from my understanding as an immature entrepreneur, right? Like people have immature training age. It doesn't matter if you're 50, if you've been training. I'm an immature entrepreneur. I'm new. 3 years, 4 years, there's no critical mass of knowledge here.
There's no 10,000 hours. Yeah.
Oh, I've definitely got 10,000 hours. I did that last month. I'm not like I've paid for mentorship with some people. Like I've hired.
Who are your men? Who name drop? Who are the people you use that you would name drop?
I've worked with Jesse Itzler, who is, he founded Marquis Jet, Zico Water, and now owns the Atlanta Hawks.
Zico, the coconut water?
Blakely. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. He was the one who looked at me when I was showing him like our growth. And he's like, that's great. What's your goal? Not financially. What's your impact goal? I told him, and he's like, well, what would the finances look like if that goal came true? I was like, I can't even understand that. I don't know how to start understanding that. And he's like, well, let's do the math on what you wrote. Is that going to get, is it that? I was like, no. I was like, well, then you can stop doing that now, because that's not going to get you where you want to go.
Yeah.
I was like, damn.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I never thought of it that way. So that was step one. I work with now a gentleman named Ken Andruko. His company is Level 5 Mentors. He now coaches me. He coaches our entire executive team one-on-one, and he meets with them in groups, and then he meets with me with them to mitigate whatever kind of little stuff is going on. He has been irreplaceable for me.
It's amazing how I've had my guy now for a while. It's amazing when you find a guy.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of like your barber.
Yeah.
It's very similar to that scenario.
Only the leverage on that is way better.
Yeah.
And Lacey Nelson.
Yeah.
She said to say hello to you, by the way.
Oh yeah. Love Lace.
Lacey was really instrumental in helping me understand how to be a better leader.
How'd you guys connect? Just in the circuit of
I saw something of hers, I think, and we just, you know what it was? She used to run the Iron and Mortar that we used to go to, and I had a chip on my shoulder about not being invited to speak.
No. As you should have.
So, and it wasn't just that. I have enough ego
Yeah.
Right? Like we've talked about ego.
Yeah.
Anytime that there's a fitness event or a wellness event or whatever, and I'm not getting a phone call, I'm like, you'd have a better turnout next year if you send me a fucking mic. So, and that's fine. That's how I need to be, I think. So my goal is become worth inviting. Like, okay, they don't want to invite you right now because either they don't know who you are, you haven't said anything meaningful, you haven't said anything meaningful consistently enough for long enough, whatever. It's not on them, it's on me. And so I knew her, like, through that. She runs this thing, and she was saying interesting things. And I reached out. We started talking, and then I was like, I think I was like, I think I can use you. I think I could.
I'm really glad. I loved what Lace had to say because she would always speak at these events. The thing I think that always felt deaf, and I don't know if I ever told her this. So Lace, if you're listening to this, she was talking about leadership and HR. And you're talking to an industry, or at least the attendees of these things that we're talking might, maybe, possibly have one full-time person and a bunch of part-time people that do 2 to 3 classes a day. Mm-hmm. It is so hard for her to take that skill set and apply and give it to a gym owner who's going to apply it with one real person who's maybe full focus 20 hours a week and then a bunch of part-timers. Whereas an organization like this where you have a team meeting on a regular basis, I'm super glad because I feel that woman can do some awesome damage in a company. She's
crushing right now.
That's great.
And I mean, she was invaluable to me because I'm not good at gushy stuff. Like, I'm really not good at gushy stuff. It's not something that I've ever put a lot of energy into because it costs me a lot of energy to even
say gushy.
She calls it affiliative leadership. So things like, hey, you did a calling Stu. I just want to let you know, man, you did a great job in that meeting today. And it's important that I tell you that I appreciate how great of a job that you did.
Because typically, if you called me after meetings, because I fucked something up.
Yeah. And it's acknowledging the good stuff. It's knowing like that person in the company loves this band and finding out that band is going to be local to them and buying them tickets.
Make a deposit in that empathy equity bank. Yep.
You're doing such a great job, even though you haven't done anything outside of the norm. I need you to continue to do the norm consistently well, which you are. I bought you tickets to this concert. I hope you enjoy it.
Are you good with that with Kim and the kids?
No.
See, I'm horrible. I'm the worst. Like, anyone, family members, girlfriends, I can't do birthdays and stuff. I don't even think about it. Like, it's my birthday today. It literally.
I forget my own birthday.
I'm the worst at that.
So, it's something that I want to get better at, and it's something that I'm working on getting better at. Because every time I do it, I'm like, damn, the results on this are huge. Like, this person, I just bought 3 months of grace with this person.
Does it make you feel better? Like, actually, do you feel better as a human, or is it like?
No. It gives it's relieving in that it's important to me that everybody on our team feels like they work in a safe and inspiring place to be, even if they're not here. Like, wherever they are, I want them. If people ask, "What is it like to work for Active Life?" I want them to say inspiring. And in order for it to be inspiring, it needs to be safe.
What does safe mean?
Safe means
you can't prevent someone from coming here and shooting this place up.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Okay,
I'm talking about. You have a problem with the way I said something. You can tell me you have a problem with the way I said something.
Okay,
and you're not going to
face
a good
open line of communication.
Always.
Got it.
Like, you're free to make a mistake. I would rather you make a mistake than not make a move. You're free to say, I thought this was going to work and it didn't. We need to pivot. You're free to try something that costs us tens of thousands of dollars and doesn't work, despite the fact that we don't really have it to lose, because we won't grow if we don't try things. So I want to foster an environment where everybody on the team is like, I can try this. Not willy-nilly.
Sure.
With controls. And I feel like if we do that, I've heard Ed Milet talk about the idea that if you want people to stay in your vision must be big enough for theirs to fit inside. And so when someone comes to us with an idea on the team, my ambition, and we're moving more and more towards it, we're not there, we're moving towards it, is instead of saying the reason why we can't do that right now is how would we do that? I want to move there. The reason why we can't get there as fast as I would like to right now is there are so many things we're working on.
Let them come to their own conclusion if you position it that way, right?
Well, but they might not know. So, like, if a one-on-one coach, for example, says, I want to start doing this thing with slow motion 4D cameras. Okay. Do you have them? Yeah. Okay, great. And you're going to send them to your clients? Yeah. I'm using this because it's obviously not a thing. Well,
What is a 4D cam? Cleary, I want one of those. What's a 4D camera? Okay, got it. Okay.
So I don't know what that means.
I feel like he just definitely made that up.
But so I want, like, they need to be able to understand that how would every coach on our team deliver that? Like, we are resigned to understanding that we may not be as perfect for every single person in the world as an incredible local provider could be, because that incredible local provider is one person, one facility, one set of systems, and if they leave, it's still there. If we have a coach who's doing a thing and none of the other coaches know how to do the thing, and that coach gets sick, that coach leaves, that coach needs to get fired, nobody else on the staff can do it. And now we're forced to tell the client either that wasn't valuable, he was just trying it on you. Well, why was he experimenting on me? Or that was great, but nobody else can do it. Well, why can't everybody do it if that coach can do it? So there are bumpers in place.
Did you ever find yourself idolizing certain bosses or leaders? Like, I used to think of like Steve Jobs, and I used to be like, I wanted to be, from a boss perspective, I was a mix that I aspired to be. I would watch Gregory House from House and Ari Gold from Entourage. Mm-hmm. And, Ari Gold had this gay Asian assistant. He would just fucking call him a twink and scream at him. And I was like that with Isaac. I mean, me and Isaac would get in these like visceral yelling matches 9% of the time that anybody listening would be like, using your word, that is not a safe space to work at all. Like, that is not it. Like, Lacey's ears would bleed.
But hold on.
Yeah.
If Isaac likes that, it is safe.
That was the thing too, is, you have a certain rapport with certain people, just kind of like, how to coach this one person who needs you to be this kind of coach to them and this kind of, but did you ever have a more of a hard ass like view in your head of what kind of leader you want? Like that coach that always chewed your ass out, and when you got a compliment from him, it meant the fucking world.
Yeah, when I was 25.
Yeah.
When I was building my how I broke this businesses, that's what I wanted to be. Once I realized that is not the most effective way to live or to operate, I threw that out.
See, I do better with it, but I'm still very much like, I have this very quick, and I'm very much into having the conversation with my guys. But I find myself all too often, I want to lure them in, and when they're feeding me something, I'm like, all right, this is not the right answer. This is not the right scenario. I'm going to kind of lead them into this layer, and then I want to set it up so that they can learn on their own that they just walked into a dead end. That's why that decision was a dog shit decision.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot internally, about the idea of how far do we let somebody, like, there are some things that we need to change fast in the next 2-3 months. That's fast in this world. I'm waiting on the person who runs those departments to come to that realization. And I have set in my own mind kill dates where that can't be the thing anymore. I need to be able to just come out and say, this is what we need to do. Do you have any suggestions or opposition to that? But
there'll be like a hard kill then. You'll have to be like, nope, this is the kill date.
Yes.
We got to cut this.
Yes.
So
but the thing is, I tell them that. And I've spoken with this person on our team. Ryan is his name, our one-on-one coach. We want to make some big changes on the one-on-one side that make it way better. Even though I already think it's really good, we want to make it way better. And we need to treat our one-on-one coaches a little bit differently if we want them to be able to perform in a different way. Like, we're going to be asking more of their time, more of their intention. And that's going to mean we got to pay them more money and give them more opportunities. So figuring out how to do that is something I've asked Ryan to do. And it was his idea, by the way. I don't want to take his idea. It was his thing. And on the last call that we were on with the group, I said, do you want me to tell you what I think we should do? Or would you like me to ask you questions to help you figure out what you think we should do?
They took the latter.
And he's like, for now, I would prefer the latter. I want to learn as we get there. I'm like, cool. That's great. And I have confidence, a lot of confidence that Ryan will.
So you know what the kill dates are?
I'm not totally sure what the kill dates are. So no, yeah. It's the kill date is when my anxiety gets to the point that I'm like, we got to do this now. That's the kill date.
That's me.
That's the kill date.
You're very good at networking, and a lot of people don't realize, and I don't know how much you want to talk about it because I don't know what this application process looks like at this point, but you organized, I remember distinctly, it was over the summer, and I remember you hit me up like, I want to create this mastermind, not mastermind. all right? And you've created this really cool roster, this entrepreneurial support group, if you will, and we meet monthly. And it's got an amazing roster on it, and Starrett and Marcus and Rachel and Chris. It's got this a lot of individuals who haven't been able to even be as often as like the core group, but that core group has been growing. And I wasn't able to make the last one. Why did you want to make what do we want? I mean,
Call it the support group.
The support. Why did you want to make this non-mastermind support group?
I believe that we are who we surround ourselves with, and we surround ourselves with the voices that come into our head. We surround ourselves with the people who we allow to influence us. We surround ourselves with the people whose influence we seek. And being an entrepreneur and owning a company can be a lonely place to be, because despite the fact that our team is great, at the end of the day, our team answers to me. And there's a dynamic there that no matter how open door policy you are,
safe it is, yes.
There's a dynamic. And I've looked to join these masterminds, and it's like, oh yeah, you give us $50,000 and we'll put you in a room with all the people that you want to network with, and you guys can sort it out. And I'm like, that sucks. That sucks. And just not interested in that. And there are people who I admire. You, right? Christy, Annie, the whole list. I admire things about everybody who comes into that room every week or every month, excuse me. And I wanted them to influence me more. It was a selfish decision. And I looked at it in a way where I'm like, I bet they're all fucking tired of being charged $50,000 to make friends too. So let's just get in a room where we genuinely are there to help each other and not charge anything for it.
You're a great connector in that, and the thing that really resonated with me, because I have guys like you and Jim and people who are in that group and people outside that group that I have
Jim Crow, what you're talking about.
Yeah, and those real quick, like one-off random conversations about stuff. Like you and me might see something happening on Instagram or a topic that we send some text messages back and forth, or same thing with other people. And there's just this really, they were communication, but really informal, and it didn't have as much substance. And when you were talking about this, it's like, that sounds like such a good way to actually pack some substance into that. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, who is not in that group yet that you want to get in the group, but you're either too far removed, you don't even know how to get the intro, or for whatever reason, they're just not in there yet. Maybe they're busy or whatever it may be.
That's a great question. I don't know. I don't want people in that group whose values don't align with that group. So when I look at, for example, it'd be great to have Richard Branson in that group. Right? I don't know Richard Branson. I'm making guesses on what kind of a guy I think he is based on the things that he wants me to be able to see. I don't necessarily.
So they got to be like a degree removed from you already.
For now.
Yeah.
For now. But like I've mentioned it in the group a few times, like if you have somebody who you want to bring into the group, bring them in, because I believe that you, the proverbial you to the people who come to that room, wouldn't connect with somebody who I wouldn't want to be connected with.
It's weird because it's like a friend group, and anytime you have two friend groups or two, and you're mixing them for the first time, there's always like you have to give them some background. Like, all right, this is Carol. Carol's the crazy one, right? This is Stu. He kind of comes off as a dick, but just get to know him, and
give him a chance.
Just give him a chance.
He's got a heart.
Yeah, but no, I what you've done there is great. Just to give everyone some context, essentially, we're talking, this is a one-sheeter on Zoom, right? There's no scrolling to have to get to the second set of squares. This is a one-sheeter, 6 to 9 at a time-ish is kind of probably what we're averaging right now.
Yeah.
And you kind of open up and everyone's just kind of shooting the shit, and then it's who's got something. And when I say got something, it was who's got something they're going through right now and they want to flush it out with everyone. I remember one day I took that mic so quick and I was like talking about, all right, I might be sunning down the gym at some point and going in all in this and blah, 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 and the license thing. And I've got this, imposter. And then Rachel was talking about wanting to, create that podcast. She wants to become the first female, GM or owner. I'm sorry, owner in MLB.
She started with GM. And Kelly was like, "Why not be an owner?
Why not be an owner?" And it's this cool place where you just kind of throw it out there, and then I know the thing was like, I'm just so excited to. It's like there's a well, and I can't see the bottom of it. I can't see my own solution. I'm gonna drop this fucking rock down there, and I'm just gonna wait to listen. And that listen is just the feedback from everybody else, just kind of giving me a little ripple effect, feeding back on. is it operating the way you wanted it to, or at least you you in your head you thought it would?
Some of it. What I would like to happen more is we're on a Slack channel together. That's where we can and should be interacting more on there. It's just it's not easy. It's not intuitive how to have those conversations, because to give people a glimpse inside, when we have those meetings, it's who's got something that worked well that they want to share, that's not working, that they want some thoughts on, and it's just take the stick, talk. And then someone will talk and we'll all just chime in on and just like your Facebook group, right? Questions, which is what's so cool about it. No one's going to say something like, I want to acquire more clients and we're struggling to find people. What are your thoughts? And people are like, oh dude, Facebook ads. Like, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's, well, what have you tried? Why didn't that work? What kind of clients do you want? Where do you find that when you get them from there, it
answer
works
the
well?
question with a question.
Yeah. To really get enough information to finally say, okay, well, based on all of that, I think that this might work. Instead of do this, it's what you need to do. That's hard to do in a Slack group.
It is. And I feel the thing that I feel with the Slack group too is it's another tool we're all using. We all have clients, we're all communicating, and that part's the hard part, is but it's for that 1 hour. But I've done things in off-channel conversations more with people. Like Marcus is someone that I did the podcast interview with him, but me and him will go back and forth on Instagram sometimes. It's created these one-off conversations. So yeah, I don't know how much of that you're hearing, but I've been having a lot more one-off conversations with members in that group than group Slack chats.
Look,
per se.
That's great. The idea of it is just I was talking to my parents about this the other day, because my parents and my sister, my family, they're very much be nice to people, everybody. They're very nice people, and I'm like, I don't think I'm not nice to people. I feel like I'm nice. And my dad's like, you can be dismissive. You can make it clear that you're not interested in a conversation. I'm like, well, my intent is not to do that in a way that makes anybody feel bad. My intent is, however, to get out of that fucking conversation. And the reason for that is I don't want any voices coming into my head that make me a lesser version of myself. At all. I'm extremely vigilant about whose voices and what they're talking about get into my head, to the point that I actually called Michael Cashew one time, and I was like, dude, you're the best connector I know, good friend of mine. I'm like, how do you make friends? He has friends. I'm like, how do you make friends? I don't know how to make friends. This is a real thing. I don't know how to make friends.
You don't know how to make friends and you don't have hobbies.
Right. It's tough. It's this thing. He's like, not everybody who you make friends with needs to be somebody who you admire everything about. You could have somebody who you hang out with who you're like, that person is funny. I don't want to be anything like them, but they're funny. And I like being around them because they make me laugh. He's like, that's okay. And you need to be okay with bringing people like that into your life, and you need to date them. You need to know, do I really want to, this person's funny. I'm not sure if I want to be like them, but are they making me worse, or are they just funny and not something I want to be like? Well, that's cool. Yeah, have them around.
Do you feel like you're going to have to be, because the one thing too is you've organized this thing. So because I don't think, has anyone brought anyone in? I don't think
Jim helped bring Marcus in.
Okay. That's a very logical, that makes sense. And, but you're a degree away from Marcus as well. You could have easily done that yourself. I feel, my guess is most people will probably not voluntarily, they're going to be like, hey, I got this person. What do you think? They're going to run it by because you created this thing. Have you played that in your head for the scenario when someone wants to bring someone in? You're like, for whatever reason, I don't think that's a good fit.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious on this.
Okay.
First off, what kind of person is that? What is in your head, the criteria they have or have not hit on some degree that makes it, I don't think you're a good fit for this group?
It's values. It's strictly values. It's is the person who's going to come in somebody who, if I'm photographed with my arm around, this is my dude.
Yeah.
Am I going to be able to defend it? There are people who, if I did that with you, people are like, he's a loudmouth, he curses a lot. I'm like, yeah. And if you listen, all he wants to do is help people. And if you pay attention, he's providing free, consistent, valuable content that can help you. Listen to it. You don't have to like the way it comes across, but Stu's a good dude. If somebody came into that group who was like, let's just say, for example, really well known without substance, it's like, what? Why? So
just because they have the million followers, just because they're that person.
Because they have a bunch of followers?
Yeah.
Like, that's not interesting. Or just because they're rich? That's not interesting. So it would be a values thing. And I would just ask questions. I would ask, like, why do you want to bring this person? I don't know this person, so it would be rude and ignorant of me to judge them without ever knowing them. What is it about them that makes you want to bring them in? And if they were just like, oh, like, he's funny, he's got a ton of followers, I just thought, like, he could maybe add some value. Like, how do you build your following? I'm like, man, it's not what we're looking. Like, that's not.
You're gonna be like, what have you done with them? Like, I've spoken with him twice at these conferences. We've spent, gotten dinner together. He's a great dude. Like, you're looking. I get the substances. I think they're the perfect word for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to make. I feel like there's got to be some disclaimer on this because you're gonna get a fucking 100 DMs after this episode drops. Be like, hey, Sean, can I get in this? Can I get this? Yeah.
Maybe. The thing is, my intention with this was never and won't be to monetize it.
Sure.
Right? Like, I was really, really, really clear about that. I think that it would be a really quick way to lose everybody who's in it right now is trust.
That's something that gets too big. Like,
that's the other thing.
Yeah.
We don't want to have a call where it's like
30 people on a call.
So, who's got something to say? Okay, well, who's that? That becomes a 4-hour call.
Yeah.
Right now, they're already 60 to 90 minutes with 6 to 7 people on the screen on the average. So I'm not looking to grow it.
If it grows, you think you'll keep groups smaller and just have different meeting times to meet different schedules and people can meet each other? Or?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. If it grew, we would have to be like, all right, this is the administrative board.
Vote someone off the island.
Let's make decisions. No, I wouldn't vote them off. But it'd be like, maybe it's like big enough that there's a meeting each day and you can just pop in. But I don't know. I haven't even considered that.
Have you actually given thought? I know Christy's brought up something, doing something in person.
I would love to do something.
Yeah, I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah,
it'd be very fucking cool. All right, moving on from that, you were talking earlier about you said something about having conversation. Your dad saying that you can it's easy to tell when you're not. You said, and I instantly my first head went to my daughter, and then I thought about even like your girls. Kids are the fucking best example of how I think a lot of us want to do. Like, when my daughter does not want to listen to what I'm saying anymore, I could be like middle sentence. You know what she does? She just leaves. Just walks straight away.
100%.
Or if she's holding a cup and she doesn't want to hold it anymore, I don't care. The thing could be fucking full. She'll just drop it. It's like, you've got life figured out. You don't want something anymore, you walk away from it, right? She like has it perfectly figured out. You've got the 2-4-6. I've got the 4. Give me a piece of dad advice, knowing, because I've been snipped. I'm not having any more. I've just got this one. So if you just had 1 and they're at 4, hit me with some dad advice, knowing what you know about me and who I am as a person.
The thing that we teach our daughters is you can use words if you know what they mean.
And there's the 2 words they can't use.
Can't
and hate. Correct. And I love that.
Yeah. I mean, they're obvious, like, take any racist slur. They can't use those either. But the 2 that they might actually fall into are like, I can't do it or I hate this. Like, can't use those. Fuck. Not allowed to use those.
Hypocritical piece of shit.
Yeah, but so I'm not worried about my kids hearing curse words around. Like, why does it bother you so much that somebody uses a curse word? It doesn't bother me that somebody would use a curse word. What would bother me is if somebody is using curse words and they have no idea what they're talking about, or if it's like they're saying it instead of the fuck this, fuck that, fuck this, fuck that. When it becomes too much, I'm like, you're not using it in a way that makes
the quantity is taken away from the effectiveness.
Yeah, it's like this is sometimes like a Tarantino movie. I'm like, that's a lot. Like, I get it. It's a cool movie, but like, that's a lot. So, that.
Yeah. It's,
I'll give you a good rule. I'll give you one more good rule.
Yeah, hit me with it.
Because it's less, it's on a different path. A way that we've gotten around the can't, because they're 2-4-6, I still hear it, is when they'll start doing something and they don't believe that they can do it, and I know that they can do it, they'll say, will you do this? I can't. I'm like, I'll tell you what. I'll help you after 1 minute of you trying. If you try for 1 minute, and after that minute you haven't been able to do it, I will help. But you need to try for 1 minute. Because a 2, 4, 6-year-old, their attention span is, so they're like, I don't want to wait a minute to get this jar open. There you go. Got it. That was a great job. And you celebrate the win.
You were in here one day with, I forget which
Kenzie.
one. Yeah. And you had her on something. She said, I can't. And you're like, you can do anything. And I used to say that to Gus all the time, right? So and then I remember it was like the very next day, I just bought a new GoPro and I was fucking around with it. I made some video of her like,
on the road.
we're trying to play on the rings, and she said she couldn't do it. And I made her scream, I can do anything. And it was just like this. It was a very cool thing that you definitely inspired when I saw you working with your daughter. Because I'm not in my gym a lot, except for I'm in office, and I don't have her there a lot because I'm not coaching. If I would have had her back in the day when I was more in the business, I think she would have grown up around all this stuff, and so I try to take her there all the time, and just because I think it's a very cool place for kids to grow up and see self-empowerment and all that. Would you consider yourself a protective father? Because I'm very much like you. I'm not protecting Gus from swear words or getting pushed down. I want to protect her from the things that are going to come at her rarely. She should probably rarely get hit by a car.
Right.
She should probably rarely get stabbed. She should probably rarely get punched in the face.
Right.
But she's frequently going to get told that she's a bitch.
Right.
She's frequently going to get told that she's fucking stupid. Those are things I want to talk with her about, have conversations, but I'm not necessarily looking to protect her from things that are guaranteed, bet all the money on it, are going to happen.
I think it's more, I would like to think of myself as a preparatory dad more than a protective dad. And I think that's what you're speaking to also. I'm not going to be able to keep people from
the fact that you even have that term ready to go is just so impressive to me.
Preparatory.
Yeah, I know. You did it just now?
Yeah.
Love that.
So I'm not going to keep somebody from calling her a name. I'm not going to keep somebody from bullying her. I can't. Slap on the wrist again, right? I'm not allowed to say that. That's an impossibility. So my time and energy is better served preparing her for what do you do when? And that's the version of protection that I would like to be able to provide. Like Larry jokes with me when I found out that our third kid was going to be a girl, I immediately signed up for one-on-one mixed martial arts training. I'm talking the next day.
Are you still doing it?
Not one-on-one right now, no.
What was it? What kind? Like just MMA?
Everything.
Yeah, got it.
Everything, all of it. And it was I was not joining groups simply because I was unwilling to change my schedule. I'm like, whatever. It's going to be one-on-one. And I don't even know if I'm any good at it because the guy I train with, I don't hit him. I don't land punches. I just get my ass kicked all the time. And that's fine. That's cool. And Larry joked to me. He's like, it'd be even cooler if you could teach your kids how to protect themselves. I was like, you know what? You're right. That's true.
He's not wrong.
So I don't want to be the dad who has to protect the kids who like, my kid's not getting in the game. Like, you need to play my daughter more. Like, I'm not going to be that.
Are you seeing them gravitate towards fitness at all? Is that a thing you're noticing?
I would say yes if I didn't see other people's kids gravitate towards fitness.
Okay.
My kids like to come here and work out with dad. Their workout with dad is like 30 seconds of burpees or something, and then it's like I just want to swing on the rings. I just want to walk on the treadmill.
Play, yeah.
So I don't know. I think the likelihood that I have Olympic medalists in my house is low.
Yeah.
You never know.
The fatherhood thing is super interesting because I feel you're probably the same way, was a harder human pre-daughter. And that's just one.
100%.
Do you get softer is I guess maybe the right word, even softer, nicer? Do you become a better human with each daughter? Or is it like, the first one took me from a level 10 alpha down to a level 8.5, and the rest of them, they can fuck themselves. I'm not lowering it any more than that.
For me, the first one took me from the 10 to the 8.5 and taught me that, like, you think you went from the 10 to the 8.5. You only mentally made the switch that you're supposed to be at 8.5. You're still living at 9.9. So I'm still working my way towards the level that I feel like I'm more appropriate to be at. And I don't think I want to go any lower than that.
I let people, and I don't know why. I didn't do any video with it. That's probably why. Not enough people, I think, have heard the podcast interview where I had you interview me post-divorce. And I don't know, like when we were talking about that, I was like, this thing's going to fucking slay. Like, this is going to kill. And I got a lot of good feedback, nothing to the scale that some other random fucking thing I've made has gotten for me.
Should we do it again right now?
We probably should. We probably should. I need to probably re-air that and find that Zoom footage. I get divorced and I contact you and I'm like, listen, I've had time to digest this thing and think about how this applies to me. And I think there's a lot of other guys going maybe through this, or maybe women as well. And I want you to kind of interview me, and I want you to take it easy on me. I want you to ask questions, and I want to, exactly what it means to make meaningful content. I want you to do that with me on this topic, and you're asking the questions. Mm-hmm. Now we're over a year removed from that conversation. Me and my ex-wife still very, very good friends. The co-parenting thing is going well. Have you had any other kind of conversations like that with any of your clients or anyone you're working with that is going through? Because divorce and entrepreneurship is you're more likely to get divorced than you are not. And you and Kim have this great, amazing thing. Anytime I even see her on your Insta and stuff, she just seems so cool. Like, I'm like, that, like, you found someone that can take your bravado and energy and what you bring to the table and your need career-wise to fucking be out there with it all the fucking time. Mm-hmm. Have you had anyone come to you with maybe wanting advice or to talk about this?
Clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I try to avoid giving advice because
it's a tough thing to, yeah.
What do I know about their relationship? We have a motto that it's not about you and it's still your fault. And the idea of that is, it's not that everything is your fault and that you're a bad person. That's not what it is. What it is you had a part in this. You might have done the first 1% of what it was, and then the next 99% was the other person or people. If you hadn't done that 1%, would that have happened? And I just try to help the people who come to me with that kind of stuff. And it's not frequent, by the way. It's not like I'm a marriage counselor and having people do this all the time. And when I do get people coming to me who have real imminent, I can tell this is a real thing, I will refer them to somebody else. My whole intention is just to be like, flip it. Why do they feel that way? What did you do? How could you do it different? What was your role? That's the only thing I really try to do. Otherwise, Kimberly and I have worked with coaches in the past who have been helpful. Most recently, Alexa Martinez, who's on Instagram at that sex chick.
Did you just have her on the podcast?
Yes.
Yeah, I did. Yep.
She was great. And we weren't doing it because it was, we want to have crazy hot sex. We did it because it was like, well, what are the insecurities that I have, that you have, that we both know are there, but we don't talk about them because we don't want to talk about that. And it was really helpful.
Weren't you guys going to do a podcast together?
Who?
You and your wife. Weren't you going to start?
Done. Like a regular one?
Yeah.
I think this guy over here would lose his mind if I was like, hey, I want to do another podcast.
Yeah. But okay, so
I think we could. I think it'd be fun.
I think so too.
I think that it needs to be appropriately timed for us.
Sure.
And she's retiring in June to figure out what she wants to be when she grows up.
And how old is she?
37.
I fucking love that.
Yeah,
I love that.
She's Kim. Without Kim, there's no active life, because she provided me with the necessary stability to take chances and fail. As
emotionally, financially, all that kind of stuff.
All of it.
Yep.
Like, as much as I would love to be like, I'm the guy. I lived like the Andy Frisella. Like, I lived on a mattress in the back of my store for 17 years. Like, I didn't. And part of me feels some imposter syndrome around, like, I grew up with means. My parents did well, and they were phenomenal mentors. I don't remember a bad day in my childhood. I get to marry this amazing woman who, in the beginning of the career, she's making me, $50,000, $55,000 a year in New York. That's not a lot of money, but as a teacher, consistently bringing that money in. And I'm working 17-hour days making nothing, like really close to nothing. And she never was like, you need to grow up. You need to stop dreaming and start doing. Never. She knew what she got herself into. Like, she used to call me her penny stock because she's like, one day that penny stock is going to hit and it's going to be worth the investment.
That's a cute nickname, penny stock. That's cute.
Yeah.
I like that.
So we've always had that kind of open line of communication. And I would say that outside of the things I've been able to do for the company, she's been the number one reason why we've been able to do anything.
How about partnership dissolves or breakups? Have you handled any of those calls with clients? That's I'd say that's probably my fourth most frequent consulting call.
I think that's one of my greatest skill sets because I've done it so often.
Why do you think? I want to say why I think I think I do a great job. I wish I could do it more. Like, I would like to advertise that actually more, but I don't, because I feel like it's just putting a negative cloud over something.
You could do that in a way that other people couldn't and shouldn't. Like, you could come out and be like, hey, if you and your partner used to love each other and now you fucking hate each other and the only thing that changed is you got into business together, call Stu.
Yeah, well, the thing about it is because no matter who contacts me first, when they both get on the call, I don't like either of you. Right. I don't literally care about either of you besides the fact that you have a vested interest and you want X, you have a vested interest and you want Y, and I want to help you guys both get what you want in some meaningful fashion. But I think the reason that's worked for me, people like, he's going to call that person out on their bullshit.
Yep.
But he's definitely going to call me out of my bullshit. Talk to me about your experience in doing this, because I find these absolutely fascinating.
I don't love doing it. I'll start there because
it's sad. It sucks.
And things that carry a high emotional burden, I'm not great with. I'm really bad around death.
You personally carrying that?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you're sad? I don't know. I don't.
So you mean like it doesn't affect you? You just don't know how to respond and
exactly.
What's that?
Empathize.
Yeah, empathize with that person or support that person that way.
I'm able to empathize. I'm unable to sympathize or uninterested in sympathizing, if that makes more sense. I'm like, do you want to get this resolved or do you want to be heard? I'm all in for both happening. I'm just not sure I'm the guy to do the hearing, if that makes sense. It's not my favorite thing to do. And I said I was strong at it because it was a joke. It was tongue in cheek because I've had partnerships break down over and over again. Twice, Sean, or more than twice? He's nodding his head.
He's going up.
Well, I remember the last one. I remember where we were. We were in a parking lot in between the main road going eastbound and westbound. And I told him that I was going to be splitting with the partner I had now, which was running the business that was paying a large part of his income. And he was like, "You're sure? You're sure?" He's like, there's a common thread to all of these partnerships that I've been with you through that have broken down. I'm like, I know, it's me. I know.
What was that common thread?
Me.
Well, but what about you?
Yeah. Like, the answer is yes. Like, it was me. Well, we'll come back. We can come back to that in a second because I think it'll be better answered when I talk about how I help these people. So, working with people who want to split their partnership up, it's all about the same thing as the people who come to me about, like, my wife is just doing this. And I'm like, I'm going to shut that down right now. Your wife is doing that for a reason. What is the reason? What could you have done better as a husband that maybe wouldn't have had your wife want to do that? Let's talk about that. Let's not talk about what she does wrong because you're not going to change her. Let's talk about what you could do better that might make her want to change. That's where we focus. So in the partnership stuff, it's the same. It's like, where did this thing start going wrong? And usually what it is the same thing it was for me. What do we want this business to be? You guys never fucking talked about it. Or you talked about it and then it changed and you never talked about it again. So that's why all of my businesses with partnerships broke down.
Communication.
Communication around where do I want this thing to go and what do I want my role in it to be. My first partnership was with one of my groomsmen at my wedding, one of my best friends in the world. We decided to open a gym together. And we never talked about what success in the gym would look like, what I would be doing, what he would be doing, what the gym would be doing. We never talked about that. So when it started to do things and I was like, we should do more of this. And he's like, no, we should do more of this. It was like, well, I'm doing all of this. Well, I'm doing all of this. Like, you don't know how hard it is to do this. Well, you know how hard it is to do this. What do? You sit around all day. What do? You coach class. Like, it was you know?
Yep.
So we got at each other like that. The second partnership that broke down was with my partner at Flex, which was the company that I started immediately after Hurricane Sandy so that we could have an event that we would not have to have a brick
This
and
was your
mortar
events
location.
company, essentially.
And it was, the company was fine. It wasn't profitable. It was fine. We could have made it profitable. I wanted to move it to one large event a year. He wanted to move it to many smaller events. And I was like, you know what? I actually think that I'm the more replaceable person in this thing because you have event experience and I don't. And you can replace me with somebody who has the CrossFit experience and clout. So just do that. I'm out. Now, that was granted after our last event, lost $26,000. I had $15,000 in the bank that she had put into it. My wife, I'm pointing because she's through that wall, and $13,000 of it was our responsibility. And I'm like, I have to tell her this. So that's when I was like, I'm gonna be a man now. I'm done being a boy playing with all these things. I'm gonna be a man. The third one that broke down, and that one I still have a good relationship with that partner. First one, not so much.
So the best man?
Not the best man,
okay.
groomsman. I went on a 2-year apology tour, apologizing to, like, easy, small apologies to people who were like, why are you apologizing? You didn't do anything wrong. Like, I don't know why you're apologizing to me. So that I could work my way up into taking that load that was on my shoulders, which was, I don't even think I did very much wrong here. And I don't like the way that this ended. And I'm angry about it. The only way I'm going to be able to drop that load off my shoulders would be to apologize for whatever part I did play. And then to just move on and say, whatever your beliefs and whatever it is, fine. I'm not looking to change you. I'm not looking to have you believe anything. I just want you to know I played a role in it, and I apologize for it.
The partnership thing, whenever you nailed the communication side, anytime I've gotten in that scenario, all I have to do is just rewind back early enough because never did they show up with an SOA. Part of my intake I'm like, cool, can you please forward over your SOA? I'm like, what's that? I'm like, never fucking. Like, I already know where this is going. But if we just rewind it back and I just pretend like I'm a lawyer they hired at the day they were formulating, and I literally, just like you do, I'm like, okay, what's the org chart going to look like? What are we responsible for? And literally as they talk, it instantly like, oh, that's exactly why we've been fucking fighting. So we create this doc or this mild SOA. I'm like, now take it to a real person, a lawyer. Get the actual legalese drawn up, kids, and get back to fucking work.
Well, here's even when you have an operating agreement, the problem I would have had in my first business with an operating agreement would have been we had to split. Like, there was no, we are not going to, like, we had to split.
It was that volatile?
In the end. And, I mean, we knew each other so well. And we liked each other so much. So now when it's like, you crossed me, well, you crossed me, and we both make it about ourselves, it got there. So even if we had an operating agreement, it's like, okay, so you're leaving, and the paper says it's worth this. Cool, I don't have that, nor do I want to spend that to own all of it and take all of these responsibilities, because we would have built an operating agreement without the business awareness of what the business actually needed. Like, it would have been like, oh, here's your money. Now I get to coach 20 classes a week. I don't want that. I have this other thing I'm doing, my clinic that's right next door, attached. That's where I make most of my money. I make dividends off of this. I don't make salary, not very much. So we still would have been in a problem place, because it would have said, you owe him this if you want him to leave. And I'm like, I don't have it. I'm like, well, I want to leave. Okay, well, I don't know. We got to negotiate on the price. So that would have been the problem there, but we would have maybe sorted it out better. We had an operating agreement. That's why I'm speaking to that. That was the problem.
Thing with operating agreements, I tell people, you have an operating agreement, let's say they say yes. I'm like, the day you have to go, because you're going to put it in a drawer, file it, the day you have to pull it out to even reference it, something's wrong.
100%.
There's no reason to ever pull out your operating agreement after the day you sign it with the lawyers unless something is going wrong, and that is the first sign that you need to have a fucking conversation with your partner.
Yep. Well, so I want to get to the third one, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, please do.
Our third partnership is the one where that's when he came to me and he was like, I'm pointing at Sean. He's off camera. He's over there. The less...
The good-looking man over there.
Yeah. So I was going to say the less attractive, but sure. So it was a very good partnership. It was in that my partner, Jeremy, was and is a very, very, very good clinician. A really, really smart guy. Like, way better manager than I ever was, or really I'm interested in being. He's really good at the maintenance day-to-day, doing the thing, right? I'm really good at making sure that people know the thing exists and that people should buy the thing. So what happens is when my responsibility is to bring business in, his responsibility is to make sure that the business is being serviced. If I go on a cold streak, I'm just hanging out. What am I doing? I'm just hanging out. And that's a reasonable thing for him to ask. So it became this thing where active life started to grow. The clinic was kind of stagnant. Most of the patients wanted to see him because he was gentler, personality-wise, softer, down to spend more time with patients. Overall, a more well-rounded clinician because he genuinely liked being in the room. I was like, I fixed the problem. I need to get somebody else in the room. Not quite that aggressive, but
there's guys that are the math guys, the quant guys, the numbers guys, the sales guys, and there's guys that are the art guys, the design guys, the slow and steady guys.
So we had very opposite strengths. His are much easier to measure. Mine are much harder to measure. So it became this thing where I'm like, I want to go do this other thing. And he was a part of it. I want to go do this thing.
Yeah.
Right? But there was no certainty there. I'm extremely comfortable with uncertainty. I'm not going to speak for his level of comfort with uncertainty. I don't know. I never really asked him. But this wasn't making as much money as the clinic. I'm like, I want to go all in on that. What? So we split, right?
Clean break?
Meaning?
Did you guys have to get lawyers?
We shared a lawyer.
Okay.
So clean break in that way, right? Like it was.
If you each have to get lawyers and then there's a couple of months of conversations, it's generally not a clean break.
No, we had very, very simple and clear terms, and we did not fight. Right? Like we weren't like, hey, let's go get drinks. We did not fight though, and my mother will ask me like, do you regret not being friends afterwards? And I'm like, honestly, we weren't really friends before. Like this was the first real, I think you have a skill set that I could use here. I have a skill set that you could use. Should we do this together? We knew each other, but we weren't, I didn't even have his phone number. We met, we chatted about it on Facebook Messenger. So I was like, we weren't really friends before. And he's a good dude. He does a great job. And I've sent patients to him and members to him. I just didn't
want to be business partners.
Yeah.
Which is the best way to do it.
And I don't want to make it sound like it was all me. He definitely didn't want to be partners with me either.
Which, again, it's me. That sounds like the cleanest best break. This kind of sounds like my divorce. Like, we were just both like, hey, like, we both are on the same page of this. We're in a good enough position. We're not so deep into it that we can't cut this nice and clean right now and make this work. You've, and maybe it's just because of the times and with everything going on, but you recently, and I'm so pissed because I don't have it in my notes, you had an individual, a client of yours, I believe, on to talk about racial equality and diversity within the workplace and in that whole topic. Yeah. And I've heard you speak on several podcasts, many, and I've had many conversations with you. I've never heard you walk more on eggshells around it. Like, it was just not your forte of a scenario, which is not mine at all. Right. I would have done worse than you. I thought you did a great job, but I was like, this is like, because you and me talk very alpha, very confident. Like, we literally could, if someone brings us on a podcast, we could say to the host, just introduce me. I'll take care of the rest. Right. And I can I don't need you to ask me any questions. I got this. What's the topic? I'll go on it for hours. In this one, and as that podcast, what was her name? I want to make
Taryn Pascal.
Taryn. She was great.
I think it's at T Smiles something on Instagram.
Is she a client?
She took our seminar. She's not a client.
She's I thought she was doing great, and she was so graceful because you were very like, hey, self-admittedly, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to get better at this. With everything that's going on, New York is one of those states that you guys, I mean, I don't know how much that gets out here. I've talked with a lot of people. I mean, especially I've got friends who have businesses in Minneapolis with that recent fucking shooting and all that. After talking with her and where everything is, do you believe the current climate of humans is too sensitive?
I don't know. I think
and it could be any topic, police shooting, fucking,
I follow you.
Anything.
I think we all just need to try to gain more empathy and I it's
Towards
important
to anything or
to everything.
Okay.
To everything. Like when people ask my opinion on racial stuff or on political stuff, my basic answer is I don't believe that I have enough information to formulate a real clear opinion that I could defend. You know, like if I anything that I would say, somebody with more knowledge, more statistical data, more experience in the space would be able to come and teach me something. And so I try to avoid creating opinions around things that I don't fully understand. And the reason I wanted to have Taryn on the show is she was helping me try to make our seminar more inclusive. And for selfish reasons. And this is like, it costs more energy to take something that's already really, really, really good and change it to make it more inclusive. And it's not broken, so we don't need to fix it. Selfishly, if we make it more inclusive, more people will buy it. And if more people buy it, we will have a more diverse group of people who've gone through education who we can hire staff out of, who will allow us to be even more inclusive in our language and our offerings, which will allow more people to buy it.
Which was, and I think that's what she led with. She said this is going to be a slow process because you don't want to do the pandering move where you just hire 4 black people and 1 yellow kid because you need the different colors of the fucking rainbow in the business. And I thought that I really liked that.
Well, the big thing for me is I want to hire the best people. And I believe that there are people of all races and all genders who exist as the best people who we could use on our team. And as a company, we haven't done a good enough job of creating an avenue for people like that to effectively find us and come work for us. So I wanted somebody's help who does that professionally to help me understand how can I do that in a way that is transparent, that is meaningful, that is, again, I'll go back to the substantive, without it being like just a timely, like I want to hire a black person.
The affirmative action of I just need to bring colors in and different kind of people in to check the box type scenario. I mean, growing up in Cleveland, I had a lot of buddies. My uncle was on the police department. I had friends in the fire department. It was like, you hear the 45-year-old white dude pissed off. They hired this black guy, but he's not as qualified as someone else, but it's because he was black and that's why they hired him. And that was always in my head, this very like ignorant, like this, that's how I always thought of affirmative action. Right. And with everything that's gone on in the past year, and especially for you're like, I want to hire the best people. I don't want to have to hire someone just because of the market. Yeah. So that slow drip that you just talked about is, more inclusive marketing, more inclusive attendance at seminars, more educated, inclusive people, which become coaches and employees here, and on a slow, steady timeline, which I think she completely gave the cosign on.
Yeah.
That's how you ultimately make that change.
Yes.
With that, in that realm, you and me both make content that can be seen as bombastic and that can be
Shaggy immediately popped into my head.
Yeah.
Put that in.
Yep. It can be bombastic. It can be polarizing. I go to probably what I know, and I thought was like, this is probably the most Sean has ever poked the bear ever. Like directly poke the group of people. And that was another organization in this space and their belief in a trainer compensation model, the 4 9s thing, and that whole Chris Cooper thing. I mean, I remember there was even like a meme. I believe one time it was a picture of, it was something like an Auschwitz. No. It was like it was something to do with the Holocaust. It was like
I didn't make it.
Not a Holocaust joke, but it wasn't a meme where it showed something. It was like a desolate wasteland, and for whatever reason, like Auschwitz pops in my head. Maybe not.
I think it was just like a desert and like a big farm.
Okay, a desolate wasteland, whatever it was, and it was like the checking account when your coach or your owner pays you on a 4 9s model or something. I was like, he's going all in on this one thing, and there was good backlash and bad backlash from that. Yeah. People joke around and they're like, "Oh, you're Stu. You're trying to be the Howard Stern shock jock of
Howard Stern did well.
Yeah, did really well. How do you feel about content when you're creating it and in your heart, like I didn't wake up today saying I want to piss off a bunch of people and I want 51 to like me and buy something for me and 49 to tell me to go fuck myself, but you instantly know the topic that you have a burning fire in your gut that you want to spew on is going to go 51-49.
I had a lot of ignorance when I did that. I actually wasn't poking a bear. I didn't know that was a 2-brain principle. In fact, weeks earlier than when I started that thing, I had Chris Cooper on my podcast. I'm not shy. I would have asked him about it. if I knew it was his thing. I didn't know it was a two-brain principle, and I didn't have any reason to Google where did it come from. I just knew it existed. So I was trying to make clear how ridiculous it is and how destructive it is and how just stunting of any kind of growth that payment model is. I didn't know I was going after a company. I wouldn't have done it that way if I knew I was going after a company. That's not my style.
Did he ever reach out to you?
Him? No.
Yeah.
No.
Even after being on the podcast, be like, yo, bro, what the fuck?
No, did not reach out to me. And I don't, that's not, he can.
Sure.
Right? And I would talk to him. But I don't, it's not his responsibility to. So people reached out to me, though, who I respect. Two in particular, Chris Spagner and Mehdi El-Amin. Chris Spagner is a coach who we've mentored, who works at CrossFit 7 Mile, 6 Mile. I don't remember how many miles they got, but they're down.
And Mehdi is South
Caymans.
Arlington.
And Mehdi is South Arlington.
We just started doing copywriting for him.
Perfect.
You know.
So they both, who I have a lot of respect for both of them, came to me and they were like, what you're doing, we get the point. And it's not even a bad point. You're making it, you're bullying people. I was like, how am I bullying people? And they're like, well, you're telling people that what they're doing is bad, and you're not telling them how to do it better. Stop telling people that what they're doing is bad. Start telling people how to do things better. And I was like, damn, I didn't realize I was bullying people. Like, that wasn't my intent. And Mehdi at the time was working with Two Brain, I believe, and he was like you don't need to go after them. I'm like, whoa. I'm not going after anybody. Well, it seems like you are. I'm like, I'm not at all. So I remember where I was right after I talked to Mehdi. I was driving to a seminar at Invictus Boston that we were presenting, and I pulled over on the side of the road, and I just filmed an apology video and posted up on Instagram because I'm like, this is not.
Were you apologizing for the delivery or not? Because it wasn't for the message.
No, I stand by the message.
Yeah.
It's a destructive model. I was apologizing for the delivery. I was apologizing for misunderstanding that I was meaning to give people the spark to be like, maybe there's a better way to do this, without having come up with the better way that I could share. So it wasn't fair. it was like telling somebody something about you is ugly. I don't know what it is. It's in your face, but something about you is ugly. And that's not an effective way to help somebody.
So instead, what you're saying is you should be like, you need some eyeshadow. You need to get a fucking tan. Like something about your face is ugly. This is how I'd recommend fixing it. And because again, it's your,
if we're going to talk about ugly
sure,
faces,
yeah,
and you know, pot calling the kettle black maybe, but I'm not winning any beauty contests. But I'm not. The point I'm making is what I should have done at the time and what I do now is talk about here's how you should do it. Here's one way that you could do it. Here is a valuable way to think about how you might do it. Instead of, don't do this. And that's been well received. And the apology that I put out there was to make sure that people knew my intent was to help, not to disparage, not to bully, and that I didn't know it was somebody else's model, and that I would never have done that if I'd known.
I think I like the way you looked at it.
The memes were funny, though.
The memes were funny. They were funny. I enjoyed them. And I look at it a little bit differently. I recently had a licensee that probably is not going to sign on with us because they just de-affiliated from CrossFit. And it was brought up to me, not by the owner on the call, but by a key influential, like the GM, decision maker. How do we know that the things that you say as WTF Gym Talk are not going to come back to haunt us as an urban movement license? How
Sure.
you might poorly represent the whole thing. And I was not prepared for it, but I respected it, and I thought it was a really smart conversation that we could have around that. And when I think of making content, and I'm curious how much, like, what your position on this would be, there are times I'm looking to take shots fired at a thought, a belief, a paradigm, or an organization, not to shoot and drive. This isn't a drive-by. I'm showing up on the front yard that you're into, the internet, and I'm making a statement about something. Recently, I did this Noble video.
That was great.
Okay. So the fat shaming and using the term overly fat, and I'm going to show up on the internet. I'm going to make this statement, and it's me shooting a shot towards your house. And I'm going to stand there, and I'm totally down for us to have a duel or a conversation, however you want to look at it. I've been called a cyberbully so many times.
Well, but
go ahead.
I think there's a difference between what you're doing and what's being, what people are saying, if that's the case. You're not shooting a shot at the house. You're shooting a shot outside so that somebody will come to the window and be like, what are you shooting in the street for? I'd like to talk. That maybe someone could argue, why doesn't he just ring the doorbell? And that would be a gentler way to do it. And a reasonable answer to that would be, less people come to the window.
I don't have a business in DMs. I have a business in public content.
Right.
And that's.
But I mean, even you could soften up how you share your public content. The question is, would it be as effective,
or would it be as authentic?
That's what I mean.
Yeah. Would it be as authentic of a way? And in the world of, again, even how much people dislike maybe the marketing principles and designs of companies like Gym Launch or the things Hermosi really brought to the forefront, they work. Like, there are things to get people's attention. You know,
do they?
They work for the purpose of the click, and for my purpose of getting someone to even know that a girl had thoughts on Noble and it got published. That was the thing that was not even a headline. It was not even a big splash. It was something I saw that was very interesting to talk about. When you're making content now, and you think back to the 4-9 scenario, besides like, okay, if I'm going to blast something, I'm going to blast this my own solution. So it's not just shitting on a bunch of people, but shitting on them and then saying, this is how you can get out of shit. Has there been anything you've pulled back on recently? Because I've had to pull back on some stuff.
I still pull back on 4-9s.
Okay. So even today you pull back on that.
It's a heavy weight that, I really just want to drop the weight and let it just fall down and explode. But I won't. And I'm constantly trying to think of ways to do a better job. And the reason why I think that's so important is I think our industry needs a lift. Our industry needs to improve in a big, big, big way. And I made a post today referencing your post from earlier today about the idea that fitness is not regulated.
Oh, yeah.
And that's really good and has some really big fucking nightmares with that too. And my post was talking about the idea that fitness is not healthcare. Here's why. Here's how it could be. And part of how it could be is it needs to be a place that people can think about having a career. And if we're paying people a wage that disallows them from earning enough money in little enough time to be in that career, then we stunt the incentive for them to get better. And if we're stunting the incentive for them to get better, we might as well just resign to the fact that fitness isn't getting any better. This is where fitness is. And for every argument that I make that is a bad way to pay, there is a person who is prepared to step forward and say, look at how it worked for me though. This person is doing great. This person in my business is doing great. And my answer to that is, and that's amazing. I'm really happy that it worked in your isolated environment. Generally, it doesn't work. That's what I'm speaking to.
In the 4-9s thing, obviously, because of your end goal and mission, I can see where the 4-9s thing is something that riles you up. Kind of like I love brand and marketing, so that Noble kind of thing really riled me up. What else? I mean, what else has really riled you up to maybe you pulled away from? One thing this Noble thing I did recently was the closest thing to it, but when it was the Cosmo controversy of
I spoke about that.
Okay, the plus size models. Yeah, I think you did a live or something. You did like a long form kind of thing on it. You went for a couple minutes on that.
20.
That which is a good amount of time to spend on that topic. What other topics like that have hit that have you pulled away from anything because of? And again, I don't believe this whole cancel culture thing. I don't think it's like I don't listen to them. Like, cancel me, what does that mean? They're gonna take my phone away? They're gonna take my camera away? You can't cancel me. I'm infinite. I will make another account tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Like, you cannot cancel me.
I haven't really. I can't think of other things that I've pulled back from. Like, the biggest thing is just what we're trying to solve is complex, and that makes it difficult because it's like you can always just look and be like, that's a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem, that's a problem. And so I'm not pulling back from it because I'm afraid or uncomfortable talking about it publicly, because I'll talk about, like I talked about George Floyd's death when it happened, and I was honest about what I knew and believed at the time. And I talked about the Cosmo and about what I knew and believed at the time. And I think I'm more careful when I talk about those things, simply because people have emotional responses to other people's opinions about those things because of what they believe it means I believe about them. And I want to be considerate in how I bring those kinds of topics up so that people can understand I'm looking to learn more, and I'm sharing what I know today. Not what I believe to be true. What I know today. What I believe to be true today based on what I know. Not what I'm like, this is my stance and that's how it is. So the things that I've not been holding back on, but that I ultimately wanted to speak on, is the way that doctors are paid by insurance companies. And the reason why that leads to a downward spiral of quality, meaning it gets worse. The way that doctors are seen by the general population, and the reason why that forces a bad culture in the healthcare system. The way that coaches believe their value is here, and I believe very often it's here, but their potential they believe is here. Their potential, I believe, is through the roof. And those are conversations that I haven't spoken about, not because, not the way I want to, not because I'm holding back, because I don't know how to yet. And I'm trying to figure that out.
And so what I hear when you're saying it is, I believe as a content creator, I have some responsibilities, and so I need to be I have to be thoughtful with this stuff before I go straight to camera with it, whatever it may be. I believe there's also, and I am one, and so are you, as a consumer of content, there's also a responsibility on me as a consumer, right? So I'm sure you get it. Someone reads your headline, your clickbait title, or listens to the first 26 seconds, and brrr, in the DM or the comment it goes. And you're like, bro, if you would have listened another minute and a half, you would have heard me, say what you're saying, and it's all good. How much responsibility do you think there is on the consumer or the reader or the viewer?
None. I don't think it's their responsibility. I think it's our responsibility to be consistent enough in our voice that when somebody pops up and says, look what he said, 10 people pop up and say, look what else he said. Instead of 10 people popping up with the first person and saying, wow, yeah, maybe he's a bad person. Maybe he believes that that's a bad thing. I think if we can be so consistently valuable and empathetic and honest and transparent, then no one's going to stand up and be like, you're a bad person, and have a crowd gather behind them.
See, and this is where I think maybe it's not disagree. As a content creator, I know. So as a content creator, I think of, I'm taking a message and I'm delivering it via art. It could be video, it could be a post, it could be whatever it may be. The context of that message requires a commitment on your part. It'd be like somebody opening a book and getting three pages in or a chapter and be like, this book sucks dick. Fuck this book.
I've done that.
Yeah. And now again, now you can go and bash the author and give them a shitty Amazon review.
Which I haven't done.
Okay. Or you can admit the fact that like you said earlier, the consumer, don't have enough information to make a statement about this thing. And I wish that statement that you said earlier, I don't have the information needed at the time to make an opinion on this. That's what I wish would happen more for consumers. I wish they would either listen to the content through or understand what it is. I use that term overly fat. And if all you caught was that soundbite where I was calling people overly fat, I sound like I'm fat shaming, when in actual reality it was the exact opposite of it. I believe there's a responsibility for everyone when you consume any kind of content, book, video, audio, whatever. You have got to commit to either listening or understanding the full thing and then make your own interpretation. You can still hate it. It's not like you have to agree with it. But I believe there is a responsibility on a consumer.
I hear you. I think that if we place responsibility on the consumer, what we run into is needing the requirement on our own to better educate the consumer. And for example, if I make a 2-minute video or a 6-minute video, I think it's unreasonable to expect that somebody's going to watch all 6 minutes at the same time. They might come back and watch all 6 minutes, but they might not watch it at the same time. And so if the first thing that I say turns them off, I might be okay with that sometimes. I'm also prepared to deal with the consequences of these people didn't watch the rest. And when they come in with the venom and the hate in the DM, which, sure, I get plenty of it.
Yeah.
I'll respond to them with, did you watch the rest of it? No. Why not? I was so turned off by the first whatever. Why did that turn you off so much? Because you said this, this, and this. Do you believe that that's a representation? What you are hearing, do you believe that's a representation of who I am based on everything else that you've seen from me? Probably not. Like, okay. I would appreciate if you would watch the rest of it and maybe provide me with some grace. And some people are like, fuck you. Okay. I can deal with that too. The biggest time I got a lot of that was when I made a post that I made a reel that said something along the lines of wearing a mask to keep yourself safe is like putting a condom on after sex. And then the cop, like, that was meant to get eyeballs. The copy underneath explained, sure, wear a mask. It doesn't replace eating healthy, living a healthy lifestyle. And I spelled out how to live a healthy lifestyle to the best of my understanding. Now, I understand very clearly why people got angry with me about that, because I don't have the information to determine how you should wear a mask. Which mask should you buy? Do they work? How much do they work? I'm not a virologist and I'm not a maskologist. So I will do what is asked of me and wear a mask when I go out in public, right? I'm sure. The post was not meant to say don't wear a mask. The post was meant to say also do these other things. And in hindsight, I could have done a better job with the video to say that. It could have said only wearing a mask to, right? Instead of wearing a mask to. And I don't think it would have had a much different hit, but I think people would have given me more leeway. So I learned that from that post. And I got backlash, which I'm okay with.
When you and me create, and any content creator, we know what clickbait is. It's sure. What a headline editor creates. It's the title of any book that you write or the movie. Like, it's the opening line you use to pick up a chick, right? Do you want pancakes or waffles in the morning, honey?
I used to just say hi.
But that hi doesn't work as good as something super clever and witty sometimes, right? But clickbait is done purposely. I use it very often because I look at it just kind of like an old school, like a Mad Men editor newspaper. I need my headline to get eyeballs on it to either go 5149 love or hate so that they go into the context. And that's where you provided context in the copy. And we both know that people are going to hit the headline, not read the context, and then off they go.
Yep.
And ultimately, it doesn't matter because there's no piece of media anyone's ever going to create that's going to make everybody happy. And I'm not, I would be more upset if there wasn't a 51-40, some kind of split of anger there, pagans to lovers of the content. But as we go further, and while I don't subscribe to the notion, I don't even give it an ounce of thought, this idea of canceling somebody, I've run into more times in the past year now where I've had to pull a punch and stop, and I truly believe the new work that I put out wasn't as good as what I would have done, but I had to do it because I don't have the bandwidth to deal, or I don't know what I'm going to lose, or is that sponsor that's paying me this not going to fucking do that anymore?
I think that I would push back a little bit and say that you believe you had to pull the punch. I don't know that you actually had to pull the punch because I think that your intent is genuine and generally pure. So I don't think that you need to worry about being canceled the way that you're describing for speaking your mind, because the person who you would be canceled by isn't buying from you. So
in the cases in which, like right now, the issue's been around sponsorships and corporate things and stuff like that. Like, and it's not just for me, but people I work with that are like, they have statements, especially around things now. And if I make a statement that's truly reflective of who I am and what I authentically believe, if it's not on the right side of the popular opinion right now, that is very volatile and dangerous.
It is, but you can look at this from the other side. Nike decided to partner with Colin Kaepernick and got canceled cultured by the other side. The people who don't believe that what Colin Kaepernick is doing is appropriate. So, and their stock went up.
Yeah.
So I think that it really depends on who your audience is, who is buying from you, and how you want to approach conversations to attract that kind of person. I don't think that you need to worry about Stu being Stu is going to get me, canceled or whatever. I think that whole notion is a real thing. I also think that it is overemphasized and overblown from a reality perspective of what the consequences.
What the actual real consequences are. Yes. And I agree with that 100%. I think, crisis communication was a huge thing in 2020. People having, you talked about that, on that podcast. Black square, no black square. Do I comment on it? Do I not comment on it? And everyone got a really good crash course in crisis communication. Even if you decided not to communicate on any of it, just sitting back and watching, you learned a fuck ton of it. Have you guys changed any crisis communication policy? Like, will you guys make commentary on the next George Floyd scenario?
I don't know. We haven't made policy on it simply because I don't think you can make policy on something that we don't understand that's coming down. I would. Our general rule is treat it like crossing the highway. If you go to take a step and you're like, I don't know, just stay on the fucking sidewalk until you're sure that you can cross the street. And that seems to work. When I spoke about George Floyd on my personal page,
and I didn't see this. What was what was your sentiment at the time based on?
I honestly don't remember. I have to go back and watch
it.
The big thing was, I believe, I was asking people just to listen.
Okay.
Like, instead of rushing to judgment, listen. Like, just pay attention. But I don't remember exactly. I know.
Was it popular? Was it unpopular? A lot of people chew you out for it, or was it?
No, it was. Okay. I got a lot of not a lot. I didn't get a lot of negative. The only negative I got was from people who I believe feel as though they have something to lose if there's merit to the argument that there was a problem with it George Floyd died. And to me, I'm like, if you feel like you have something to lose with the way that guy died, there's a bigger problem. I'm not a juror. I'm not deciding if it was murder 2, murder 3, man. That's not my job. I'm not equipped to do that job. All I was speaking about, or I'm sorry, most of the commentary thereafter was thank you for this, which was good. I'm not the guy to be like, I'm not swinging either way.
Yeah.
I'm just talking about how this affects me.
So for Active Life, by and large, you guys aren't going to go out and make a statement over what happened in Minneapolis with that guy who got shot, whatever.
Again, because we don't have the information
sure
to make an appropriate statement. What we know today will be different in 2 years. And do I want to look back at 2 years from now and say, we weren't experts at that, we didn't have all the information, and we spoke very confidently about what we believe to be true? That sounds ignorant, and that's what I want to avoid.
It's difficult because I feel creating content that was slightly controversial and all that there is some fun to going in and being like, I'm going to just drop this bomb on the internet and walk away and see it happen. And then there's other things like topics that some people are very passionate and close to, and it means a ton to them. And then kind of you're frozen. You're like, I want to comment on this, but I'm the guy making the smart ass jokes and all this. I say these things, so I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole.
Well, I saw some stuff during that time and various other times that I'm just I'm watching it and I'm like, are you fucking serious?
Like what?
I'm not going there. But I saw some stuff
From people like in our industry, or you're seeing like random clips from
generally,
all over the... Okay.
Generally. Yes to
Okay,
both. And I was just like, I don't believe that that's how you believe. And maybe I'm wrong.
You think they were pandering?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Or just like overplaying the whole... the way that it made them feel.
It was to jump behind the BLM movement. It was more of a trending thing than it was an actual social justice thing for a period of time.
Maybe again, I didn't jump behind it. I didn't jump in front of it.
Yeah.
I still don't. Like if someone said to me, "Do you support BLM?" I'd be like, I don't know. What introduce me to 100 of them, and let me sit down and have 3-hour conversations like we are right now, and then maybe I'll pass a judgment. I don't know. I sympathize with people who want to see positive change for themselves and for people who look and feel like them. It doesn't mean that I support the way that they want to do it, and it doesn't mean that I don't.
Yeah.
I wish that more people would take that kind of perspective. Like, come out and talk about how something affects you, sure. Because if somebody wants to give you a hard time about the way that something makes you feel, that's them trying to rob you of your own moment.
Yeah.
And that doesn't seem reasonable. And you're allowed to say, I feel this way about this thing, and I apologize if it's the inappropriate way to feel. I'm not sure how to feel differently. This is how I'm being honest with you. And if people don't want to allow you to be honest about who you are and how you feel, then fuck them. But to come out and make a statement about this is what I believe, this is how I think it should go, this is what I think this guy did. Let's talk about where the knee was. Let's talk about how long it was there for. What expertise do I bring to that conversation?
Yeah, I'm completely ignorant to that conversation. Mm-hmm. In those times, I find myself just making the most general statements. The only thing I think I commented on during that entire thing is I made a statement with a picture. It was, not every good guy is a good guy. Not every bad guy is a bad guy. And in the inverse of that statement is also not true. And just sometimes just things are just shitty and fucking horrible. And the one thing historically you can point a finger at is just horrible things that should have never happened have always happened. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, that's how it's always going to happen. You could look at it as Mother Nature to us or us to ourselves or however you want to fucking look at it. Dogs, the cats. It is unfortunately one of those things. And I'm not saying that means we all just sit back and accept it. But I find myself someone who likes to get up and talk during controversial times. I make the most general if statement possible, and I try not to speak, just like you were saying, I try not to speak on the shit that I'm not, I think you've said this before, I know a lot about a little. Mm-hmm. And the lot that I don't know about, I fucking stay so far away from. J.L. Holdsworth says it well, inch wide, mile deep. That's what he wants to be. And I get that. I like that. Back in 2012, May of 2012, I owned a gym down in the West End of Long Beach, and we got sued by our next door neighbor for making too much noise. He was right. You should have been dropping those bars. We were making a lot. Like he was. I can imagine this guy sitting in his chair and just shaking, bouncing all up day. And down at his desk. He's like having PTSD when he's trying to sleep at night. He just hears the rattling. Yes. And I tried to make changes that would make his life easier, and he was not down for them. And I'm like, well, then like soundproofing and shit, or. We separated our our floor from his floor. We offered to not even have like no dropping of weights between 9 and 5. Like we made a lot of concessions that he was not open to making. The reason I'm bringing this up is we ended up winning the lawsuit, right? Like because legally, this go to small claims court, or where did this go? This went to Nassau County, whatever court. I don't know, but it went to Sean, pay us $120,000 for legal protection court. It cost me $120,000 that, by the way, I didn't have. We were open for less than a year to win. We found out we won on October 25th. On October 30th, Hurricane Sandy came. It was not awesome, but we win the lawsuit. But during the lawsuit, we were the hot topic in town. Gym nuisance down in the West End, members running past bars. Meantime, the bars didn't care. They loved having us there because we would go. We would spend a lot of money in those bars. It was just our next door neighbor and his tenants and the people who live behind us whose dishes fell off the shelves when we shipped weights. But one of whom I signed up as member, by the way. You would. You fucking would. He came in and he was like, it's really loud. I'm like, we only have one class while you're home. Why don't you Why don't you just come?
join.
Yeah.
And he did. So that aside, like Sean was making graphics that said like CrossFit's not a crime. Like it was wild. It was a really wild time. And the New York Post put out an article about us in which they wrote one truthful statement. One, the address of the gym. Everything else about it was absolute slanderous bullshit. Things that didn't happen, things that weren't true at all. And we couldn't prove that any of those things were untrue. Like, oh, they challenged neighbors to fistfights. They were calling people assholes in the street. Like, did not happen. So I understand what it's like to have a microscope shined on you, because this town was shined on us. When I went to open a second location in town, you know, like the I don't know if you ever tried to do anything zoning. You show up to the zoning meeting, and there's like 5 people sitting up there, and you got to tell them what you're going to do, and they're like, yay or nay, yay, 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 zoned. Well, I showed up, and there were 5 people up there, and 1,000 people there, who one by one would come up,
Say why not.
say why we shouldn't be allowed to open. And they would cite the New York Post article. And I'm like, this isn't true. This article's not true. And when it was my turn to speak, because you get to go last, I addressed the 5. I said, I'm going to explain to you how we are going to do a better job this time than we did last time, even though last time we were within the rights of the law. And excuse me, because I don't believe that you're the 5 people who I need to convince. And I turned around and I spoke to the audience of legitimately probably 600 people. And I explained to them the things that we were going to do to mitigate all of that sound next time through. I explained to them what actually came out in the court case that demonstrated that much of what they believed to be true was proven to be lies. And I asked them for their permission.
Did you get it?
And I told them, I'm not going to take a vote because I don't believe that y'all are just going to be like, yeah, let them open. But I'm asking for you to give us a chance. And if we don't do a good job, I'll come right back here and we'll fix it. And I turned around and I said, and I'm asking you to allow us that chance.
What happened?
They gave it to us. And then we didn't open that location.
Yeah, your zoning hearings are way different than Mecklenburg County and North. I wish they was like that. I wish I could just get up and speak to people.
Oh, no?
Oh, it's a paperwork trail. It's it. You don't see anyone. You go to one little planning meeting with 6 people. It's the worst.
We get to speak.
You, in that regard, that post place that, I look at that like articles and publications that misrepresent things. I truly believe the Morning Chalk Up misrepresented Athenia Perez's commentary in that article 1,000%.
Well, you spoke to her, right?
I spoke to her at length. I spoke with her, and she agreed to come on the podcast. And over the course of the weekend, we were texting. I've got her phone number. We scheduled it. She even went in through my Acuity. She booked it. Over the weekend, DM. And I got some really nasty, mean ones. I mean, these are ones, with the 7 paragraphs where someone really put some time and thought into it. And I responded to all of them very nicely. And then on Sunday, she cancels the podcast. And I'm like, hey, is everything okay? Do we have to reschedule? No answer, a few days. And essentially, not in so many words, my assumption is her following her audience, people who are close to her, they started talking and they convinced her, made her think twice about it, and she made on her own decision or was influenced to not come on. And I said, listen, if you ever want to, I'd love to have you at any time. This could be 2 years from now. It's an open invitation. I love what you're doing. Continue on. You're awesome. But I believe publications that misrepresent things, it's another form of cyberbullying. And I'm going back to the cyberbullying thing. Sean was nice if he sent me, you've been on enough podcasts. You sent me a list of things, to topics that you wanted to jam on. I've tried to interwork in some of them. But the one that stood out to me that I wanted to talk about is you talked about being bullied in middle school.
Yep.
Now, I was a ginger at an all-boys high school, and the only thing I had going for me is that I was the class clown and I was decent at lacrosse. And beyond that, there's really no reason not to make fun of me in high school. So talk to me. What happened? What happened in high school?
Yeah. So it was formative, okay? Because I was pretty cool. Like I had a lot of friends. I played sports every season. You know, like I
You played baseball?
I played baseball. I wrestled. I got cut from the basketball team. I ran cross country.
Okay.
So I had sports every season.
Your mom carted your ass around fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and dad.
Yeah.
They were there at everything. So I remember in 7th grade, this kid, for whatever reason, I didn't even, like, he was just like the big scary kid in school, right? And I was probably a loudmouth 7th grader. Not talking trash about him. Like, I wasn't dumb enough to do that. I'm eating pizza one day, and this girl comes over to our table, and she's like, I don't know what you said about Anthony, but he's going to kick your ass. I'm like, which Anthony? Right? And I'm like, oh, that one. That's not good. So I'm like, all right. I'm with my friends, and they're like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. So next day, I go to school, and the anxiety for me is building and building and building. Because I wrestled 98 pounds in middle school. Anthony was like 40 years old.
He had a beard.
He had kids
Two
my
kids.
size.
Yeah.
He did have a beard. And I'm like, he's got kids my size.
I picture you just like the Sean Pastuch I know right now would just go like, I'm just going to cut this off. I'm going to go straight to him and be like, bro, whatever you heard was not me.
That is what the Sean Pastuch today would do. 7th grade, I didn't have anywhere near the confidence. Like, I had fake confidence. Like, I had confidence, but what was it based on? There was no basis for my confidence. I hadn't been punched in the face yet. I hadn't been punched in the face by life. You know, like, I hadn't dealt with anything hard. So where was my confidence going to come from? There was no resiliency that I had proven yet. So anxiety builds, and I'm just like, nope, I'm going home. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm just going to put my head in the sand. So I go home. And while I'm home, like, eventually my father comes home from work, and he always taught me, like, if somebody hits you, you hit them back. Like, it doesn't matter how big they are. If they hit you, you hit them back. And the worst thing that happens is you get beat up. But you hit them back. And I was home, like, dealing with this weird juxtaposition of, I think I'm cool. Why am I getting picked on? I'm ready to hit this kid back. I don't want to get beat up. I don't want to be afraid. Why am I so scared? And all of it was just like swirling anxiety around this thing. So my father had the conversation with me that, like, look, remember, you can't be scared and live your life. Like, you can be scared, but you need to do things anyway. So he reminded me of other times I was scared and I did things and they worked, you know, but I don't remember what they were because they weren't a big deal. This was a big deal. So he's like, tomorrow what I want you to do is this. I want you to walk into school. I want you to find Anthony, and I want you to tell him that you don't want to fight, but you will if you have to. And then deal with the consequences. I was like, are you serious? That's what you want me to do? Have you seen this fucking guy? He's bigger than you. And he's like, yes, I want you to do. And I've seen my father get in a fist fight once before. And I was like, if you come with me, like, I watched, yeah, it was.
You watched him beat the shit out of some guys.
4.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How old were you?
5.
Okay.
5 or 6. At a little league field. Like,
was it over the game?
Huh?
Was it over the game?
It was over some bullshit. It was over, like, a stupid kids thing. My dad was the director of the league, and some woman came over, yelled at him, and he was like, you're not going to yell at me like that. She hit him in the face with a soda can, and he's like, just get away from me. And she went to
sports get rowdy with some parents,
yeah.
man.
And she went to hit him again, and he just, like, stepped out of the way, grabbed her wrist, flipped her into a pile of mud, and then, like, some dudes came running over, and it was like full on brawl. I'm watching my dad, like, fall back, just
John Wick and
lighting
shit
people
out
up.
of these guys.
It was cool. I'm like, oh, that's my dad. And then the police came to the house and arrested him as we got home. He got off, whatever. All that, I'm just like, I'm not that guy. Like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do what you just did there. And I'm not 200 pounds. So whatever. Next day I go into school. I'm like, I'm not gonna be a bitch. I'm I'm going to do something here. I found Anthony. I'm like, like really, really, really scared. And I walk over to him and I'm like, hey, I heard you want to beat me up. And he looks at me, doesn't say anything. And I'm just like, I really don't want to fight you. But if I have to, I will. And I would rather do it now than wait.
If you've got time, I'd like to just do this.
Well, I'm in the hallway. I'm like, I'd rather do it now than wait. And he looks at me and he's like, you're cool. And then walks away. And I'm like, I was more angry.
You're more angry?
Yes. Because I'm like, I recognized that this guy had a power over me that I never wanted anybody to have over me, ever. And from that moment, I was just like, I will never, ever feel that way about anybody ever again. Ever again. And if somebody makes me, does anything that makes me start to feel that way, I will fucking destroy them, even if I don't know how to yet. So that is something that has been hard for me to let go of, because when I look at things, it doesn't have to be a person anymore. Like, it's evolved into an idea can bully people. And that idea for me then becomes like, that needs to die. Loud. Right?
Like the 4-9 thing.
Exactly like that.
Yeah.
So there's like Larry jokes around. He's like, this company doesn't exist if that doesn't happen to you in 7th grade. Like, you might be right.
He probably is 100% right.
So like it's when I see that kind of stuff, even when it's unintentional, I'm like, I don't know if you realize what you're doing, but that is, and that's why when people told me the post was bullying, I had like this visceral response, like, I got to pull over and apologize.
Yeah. Did you have the visceral response like, no, you don't even you obviously have never been fucking bullied?
No, because the bullying for me, it wasn't like an incessant, like, everyday thing. It was literally like a 2-day span of this girl, right? But I mean, like, I'm talking about after that, I had some really volatile events in my life, like to the point that there was a girl who was, I have big ears, but I'm uncomfortable wearing these headsets. I have big ears. And I was at day camp, and this girl was like a better roller skater than me, like 2 years later. And she would skate around and flick an ear, right? I got off the rink, took my skates off. She came around, and I fucking clotheslined her. And she was bigger than me. But like, I remember 11th grade high school basketball. I was like the last guy off the bench on the varsity team. I got cut from basketball 3 years in a row. I finally make it in sophomore year of high school. Junior year, I'm on the team, but I'm sitting. And guy who I'm friendly with, his name is Hector Vasquez. 6'2", 6'3", 240, 250 pounds. Right at the time, I weigh 135. He makes a layup. I'm like the guy under the basket. He's behind me, kind of like makes the layup, shoves me out of the way, and starts going back. I go and grab the ball, and I'm like, I fucking rifle at him. And then I spent the last 3 years wrestling. I try to double leg take him down to the ground. And the coach comes over, and he's like, what is wrong with you? You are out of your mind. And I'm like, that motherfucker, like, I'm like, I will kill that guy. Like, and he's my friend. But so it was just like, I have that in me, and it's my default. So the energy that I spend to avoid doing that is a lot. And so I need to feel like I'm really effective when I do something instead of exploding the way that would be my natural default.
What do you do with the girls? If someone comes in and hits one of the girls, what do you tell them to do?
So I've taught the girls already, and Kim doesn't necessarily agree with me. She does in some ways and she doesn't in others. I have a story here. I tell the girls the same thing my father told me. Somebody hits you, you are free to hit them back. More often, harder, until they stop. In fact, if somebody feels like they're going to hit you, you can hit them first.
You feel like they're going to hit you, yeah.
If somebody makes you feel Like, it's dangerous
Best
to be
defense is a good offense, girls.
all day long.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, yeah, hit him. So we're at my daughter's show, like her moving up ceremony from nursery
I'm
school.
so excited for this story. I hope this is going where I want it to go.
I think it is. And there's all the parents, 200, 300 people, whatever, for all the kids. And in my daughter's group, they go up on stage and all these classes go up and they sing one song and they do a dance and, whatever. So my daughter's up on stage and the dance, they have their hands on their hips and they're like, they're supposed to do this, like shake back and forth and sing. So my daughter has hands on her hips. They start doing this. She takes like a little step over to her right, gets close enough to the guy standing there, kid, and goes, bam, bam, and just elbows him incessantly until their act was over. To the point that parents in the area were like,
clearly evident that this
what is going on up there? And I'm like, oh my God, what is she doing? So she comes off the stage and I'm like, Mackenzie, what were you doing up there? She's like, singing. Like, no, when you were elbowing that boy. And she's like, oh, you mean Blaze? I'm like, yeah, why were you elbowing Blaze? She's like, when we were in line to go on stage, Blaze hit me. And you said, if somebody hits me, I can hit them back and more and harder. So I did that.
Yeah, there's a statute. There's a time limit. It needs to be
there,
instantaneous. I
there?
guess, yeah. I could come back,
Take your opportunity.
It's like that scene with Matt Damon in A Good Will Hunting, where he's like, hey, Tim, you remember me from kindergarten?
Yeah.
And just cracks him in the fucking jaw.
Yeah. Well, so I was like, oh, all right. Want an ice cream? Like that was it.
That was it. Yeah.
So that's what I teach them.
That's what you teach. I like it. I've said the same thing with Gus. I was like, if you get hit back. However, the best feeling ever is when you were able to completely shut someone down, completely do it without violence. I've been in.
I think that's probably true for someone who's never actually hit somebody really good. I haven't, by the way.
So I've been in a few fights as a kid in high school and as a kid and playing lacrosse and football. But the best I ever feel is when someone is beyond volatile. Like I've been literally as an adult, like in the past couple of years, I've had some drunk dude shove me at a bar in this public place. And I'm like, but if I can go ahead and through like verbal mental combat in 9 minutes, give me enough time, we'll have our arms around each other and he'll be buying me a round of beers. Like if I can do that, there's like, maybe it's the business sales part in my brain.
It's the I don't need to prove to you that I'm as tough or tougher than you to get what I want out of this.
Because two guys fighting in a bar is not a good look. I don't care if you're the sober one or you didn't start it or you did. Nope. It's not a good look for anybody.
I was driving home. Now remember, I'm no expert. I'm 2.5 years into training combat sports.
Yeah.
Like that's my fitness for the last 2.5 years. 3 days a week, one-on-one. Not always 3 days.
It makes sense now why I see you hit the bag on Insta and shit. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I feel like, generally speaking, I'm going to do a decent job. I'm driving home. I'm parallel parked, actually. And I've been driving for 20 years. I pull the car off the curb, and this car that I thought was like way back just like comes up on me and like pulls off and honks at me. I'm like, that guy was fucking flying. Think nothing of it. We pull up to stoplight. I'm in the left lane. He's in the right lane. And I just look over. Like, of course, you do it.
Of course.
And this guy is irate. Like,
at you.
At me. Like, rolls his window down. Tells me to roll my window down. So I roll my window down. I'm like, yes? And he's like, did you see me? I'm like, yeah. I thought you were further back. And in that moment, I'm like, he's really angry. I don't want to get in a fist fight, and I don't want to run a red light to avoid one. So I'm going to see if I can defuse this. And I'm like, sir, I'm sorry. I didn't think that you were as close as you were or maybe going as fast as you were, and I apologize. Like, it's my bad, dude. And I think he thought I was being condescending because he opens his car door, and there's no car in the middle lane.
Yeah.
And he starts walking across the street. And I have the window still down, and I'm making a split decision about what do I do here. And I just looked at him, and I was like, sir, I'm not looking for what you're looking for. And I don't think you're looking for what you think you're looking for. Can we just have a good night? And he was like, oh, fuck you. And he turned around and got back in his car. I'm like, I told the guy I trained with, I'm like, I kind of wanted to fight him.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of wanted to find out if I'm any good. But there's no winner there.
There's some of those guys that I've seen it out. I've seen guys get drunk at bars and, wearing the Affliction shirt and they whatever. And they go out and they want to present the persona, but the second you just hit him with just like of logic, be like, hey, listen, man, that shirt's pretty fucking dope. If we get in a fight, you're going to get it ripped and we're both going to get kicked out of this bar and we just paid a $50 cover to get in. And fuck. All right. Like, just like 1 ounce of logic just completely flips that machismo the other way. And there are some guys, like I have buddies, downtown Cleveland, then when they go out, like the night doesn't end until they're getting into a fucking full-on Donnybrook.
Right.
Like that's their fucking jam. And, I was just never wired that way. Like I never fighting was something that was like, I didn't do a good enough job being able to sell someone or wordsmith and fucking Frank Underwood my way into their brain.
I usually avoided real fights. Like the fights that I typically got into were like on the basketball court. Which that's getting broken up in.
That's a sports-based thing. It's physical already. You're literally 2/3 of the way to a fight in any of those sports.
Right. Like the last time that I actually got into a real fight, I actually didn't throw any punches. I was able to just like slip 2 or 3 and then get out of there. Was with a friend on a basketball court. Like a real friend. If I saw him outside, I would be like,
those are the best fights to get into because then you can knuck it up afterwards. Like, hey, I love you, man. Yeah. Sorry, let's go get dinner.
He took like 3 wild swings. I ducked one, I slipped one, and I moved out of the way. And I'm like, do you really want to do this?
Yeah.
Like, but so they're on like courts.
Yeah.
Like it's not real. I've gotten in 2 real fights and I couldn't even tell you if I won or lost. Like one time I was like, I got some really good shots in and I was pissing blood the next day. And I didn't even know how that happened. So fighting
Did
to me...
Did you do Murph? No, it wasn't Murph. It wasn't Rhabdo. No.
Fighting to me is like, I feel bad for people who feel like they need to fight.
Yeah.
Because it's like, what? You're that close all the time? Like you're angry enough to want to inflict harm on somebody else all the time that I don't want to be around that.
I don't want to fight, but like with people I'm close with, girlfriends, family, love to argue. Like where I go into a family like event and I'm like, oh, I know all of your fucking buttons. And I literally, how long am I here today? I'm here 6 hours. I'm like, I'm just going to have a button pushing fucking fiasco. I'm be like a 3-year-old in a goddamn elevator. Yeah. And there's that part of me that's like this, not even, I guess it's immature, but it's just like this part, like I love the art of debating and just doing that whole thing.
Last night at the dinner table with my parents and my brother-in-law and my sister, my wife was like, I'm going downstairs to bed. We love.
I know that scenario.
I said, like, we love to debate to the point that today my father said to me, he's like, was I too hard on you yesterday? I was like, I was thinking the same thing about if I was too hard on you yesterday. So no, we're good.
Yeah, that's dope. I fucking love that, man.
Yeah.
Brother, this has been absolutely awesome. The last thing I want to jam on real quick on here before we go, how long have you been in this town? Again, I spent a little bit of time. I had the Uber guy drive around for a little bit before.
Is that because he was lost?
I've never been here. Like I heard Long Beach, and I told you I thought Snoop, and I'm like, no wait, he's California. Like This is how long have you been in this? Like, is this how long is this?
11 years.
And do you really think you're gonna make this your petri dish for the first experiment for this whole thing, this bigger mission? You'd like to if you could. Kids are here. They're in school. It makes sense. You got a house here.
The things that would stop it would be financial stuff. Like
sure.
like if it becomes cost prohibitive to run a business here.
Yeah.
But I think that's not on the immediate horizon.
I think it'd be a very cool element of your story if you were able to make this your first petri dish and all that. And I love everything you're doing. I'm such a big fan, man. I appreciate you. You're on podcasts. You have your own, but you have 2-3 fucking of your own shows. I know you're on this all the time. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you making the time for this. So thank you so much.
Out.
I know.
That's a big deal.
I anything to get the fuck out. I've not been able to travel or do anything. So I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean fucking Pastuch.